It was from the Cataclysm. I can illuminate the technological tree. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 576, the 11th Secret Ballot. Damn it, LV. Yongchang stretched out his hand angrily and slapped the desk in front of him. The cold touch deeply stung his palm. Zero. Call Fang Zhu over, he shouted in a low voice. But soon, he shook his head. No, let him go to the conference room. Notify everyone, including the parliament, to hold an emergency meeting immediately. This matter involves the lives of too many people, and it is not for him or Fang Zhu to decide. After saying that, he reached out to unlock the electromagnetic absorption device on the seat, stood up with a solemn expression, and walked straight to the office door. Received. The meeting will start in 30 minutes. As the electronic synthesized sound fell, the office door opened, and Zero's virtual image turned into a particle special effect and dissipated in the air. Earth conference room. On both sides of the conference table, the expressions on the faces of the people were different. That's roughly the situation. LV. Yongchang raised his hand and gently rubbed his eyebrows. Let's talk about it. Do you want to change the implementation area of the tail-cutting plan? As he spoke, he cast his eyes on Fang Zhu and Han Kaiming not far away. Fang Zhu did not speak, but Han Kaiming spoke first. Professor, I need to confirm one thing. LV. Yongchang raised his eyebrows and nodded slightly. You say? Han Kaiming's eyes condensed, and he asked in a deep voice, can we still contact the human civilization of Proxima? Or, to put it another way, Zero, can we still remotely control the weak artificial intelligence over there? LV. Yongchang shook his head without any hesitation and said, impossible. Ren Feng and Zhang Zhenqing physically cut off all external network connections. At present, Proxima is like an isolated island, unless the other party takes the initiative to restore the connection, or we send a starship to Proxima B. Han Kaiming took a deep breath. His eyes were extremely complicated. There was admiration and regret. Han Kaiming pursed his lips hard. Like Ren Feng said, no matter what we do, the countdown to the extinction of human civilization on Proxima has already started. In this way, we only have one choice left. We can't let the people on Proxima die in plain sight, can we? What's more, the tail-cutting plan does have flaws, and Proxima can make up for this plan very well. In addition, there is one more point. Proxima and our target star system are almost in two opposite directions. This can greatly increase the success rate of the tail-cutting plan. A slight discussion suddenly sounded in the conference room. From the expressions of the crowd, it can be seen that most people agree with Han Kaiming's statement. But Fang Zhu raised an objection. I have a question. How can we be sure that Ren Feng and Zhang Zhenqing's plan will be successfully implemented? Professor, they have already mobilized the army. If their plan fails, then the tail-cutting plan will also fail completely. In this way, it is not only the human civilization on Proxima that will be destroyed, but also us. After the voice fell, the conference room fell into silence. As it concerns the continuation of civilization, LV Yongchang must be extremely cautious. The question raised by Fang Zhu is like a sword of Damocles, hanging high above everyone's head. The meeting lasted for 3 full days. During the meeting, under Zero's control, the tail-cutting plan and the interstellar voyage plan were still proceeding in an orderly manner. But this meeting that determines the fate of countless people has come to a standstill. During these 3 days, one plan after another was proposed, but was rejected. No one can guarantee, and no one dares to guarantee, that Ren Feng and Zhang Zhenqing's plan can be successfully implemented. After all, in the context of human civilization on Proxima Centauri, the behavior of the two of them is tantamount to being enemies with the entire civilization. The resistance in this is unimaginable for ordinary people. LV Yongchang sat in his seat with a tired face, looking at the voting results in front of him with great entanglement. This is the 10th time that all members have voted anonymously. But the result is still unsatisfactory. 51.2% votes in favor, 44.1% votes against, and 4.7% abstentions. Although the number of votes in favor exceeded half, it did not reach the standard of 2/3 of the voting rights, so this vote had no effect. Beep. A rapid alarm sounded. Professor, Proxima B communication has been restored. LV. Yongchang suddenly widened his eyes. He subconsciously supported his hands on the conference table in front of him, stood up and shouted loudly, "Quick! Establish a communication connection for me." A huge holographic projection appeared above the conference table, and a line of faint text appeared in front of everyone. Establishing a communication connection. Proxima responded very quickly. There was almost no waiting. After a line of faint words, "Successful connection," appeared. The real-time picture of Proxima B appeared in the holographic screen. Renfeng's eye sockets were sunken, his grey hair was extremely messy, and his face was full of fatigue. But his eyes were extremely bright, and even had a faint smile. "Hello, Professor." Ren Feng was the first to say hello, as if the incident a few days ago had never happened. Ren Feng, you, LV. Yongchang looked at Renfeng and didn't know what to say for a moment. "Professor, I'm here to report to you on the progress of the plan," Renfeng said in a low voice with a tired smile on his face. "So far, the total number of people awakened on Proxima B is 3,147. They are all absolute supporters of the Tail Q-TOF plan, but in order to prevent accidents, all personnel, including me, will enter hibernation one after another. All irrelevant personnel on Proxima B have entered hibernation. According to the preset program, they will wake up in 50 years and welcome the arrival of the final moment. At the same time, the 5 social nurturing centers have lifted all restrictions and started working. In order to ensure the successful implementation of the plan, all humans born from the nurturing centers will directly enter a mild hibernation state. According to the experimental data provided by Zhang Zhenking, the mild hibernation state will not affect their normal growth and development. Speaking of this, Renfeng took a deep breath and looked more solemn. "Professor, all preparations have been completed. Have you thought about it?" Just as LV Yongchang was about to speak, Renfeng smiled again and added, "By the way, Professor, Zhenking has only restored this external communication link, and he can implement physical Q-TOF again at any time." Hearing this, LV Yongchang's face changed slightly. Helplessly, he swallowed the words he wanted to say, and changed them to another one. "Ladies and gentlemen, the 11th secret ballot will now begin." Chapter 577 Farce. The voting is over. The most critical issue has been resolved, and the voting results have also changed dramatically. 86.1% of the votes in favor, 11.2% against, and 2.7% abstentions, exceeding the 2/3 voting standard. The vote is valid. LV Yongchang looked at the voting results in front of him, then looked at the votes he cast in favor, and took a deep breath. "I declare that the implementation location of the tail cutting plan is changed to Proxima B. Home. Ship departs today. The meeting is over. The Academy of Sciences and the Parliament left one after another. The next interstellar voyage requires a lot of preparation, and everyone has their own things to do. In the conference room, only LV Yongchang was left. Why bother? LV Yongchang sighed softly. Renfeng's chuckle came from the loudspeaker. For the continuation of human civilization, LV Yongchang did not speak, but looked at Renfeng in the holographic projection with regret. After a moment of silence, he shook his head. "You will become a sinner, the biggest sinner in the history of human civilization." LV Yongchang emphasized, "You could have been a hero of Proxima human civilization." Ren Feng still kept a faint smile on his face. "It doesn't matter. When I made this decision, I didn't care about these things. What's more, I didn't lead Proxima human civilization to glory, but let it decline." Speaking of this, Renfeng lowered his eyelids slightly, hiding the loss in his eyes. "This is not your fault." LV Yongchang sighed again. Renfeng did not reply. The meeting room fell into silence. "That's Right, LV. Yongchang said softly. The infrastructure of Proxima B is too weak, which will become another flaw of the tail-cutting plan. I will send some TOT material storage ships and engineering ships to build some necessary infrastructure in the shortest time. These infrastructures can greatly improve the quality of life of the 500 million Proxima people. At least, they don't have to squeeze in such a small space. Okay. Ren Feng's eyes moved slightly, and he said softly, I thank you on behalf of the Proxima people who have not yet been born. LV. Yongchang swallowed the half sentence that he had not yet said. Although this quality of life can only be maintained for a very short time. The atmosphere in the conference room returned to silence again. I will record the history of Proxima human civilization truthfully. LV. Yongchang broke the silent atmosphere again. As for you and Zhang Zhenking, I will include your names in the monument to the pioneers of human civilization. Others, right and wrong, merits and demerits, let future generations judge. I can't interfere too much. Ren Feng was stunned, as if he didn't expect Lu Yongchang to say such words. His eyes were slightly red, and he slowly lowered his head and said in a very sincere voice, thank you, Professor, that's enough. Earth. Calendar year 2506. The human fleet has completed all preparations. The fleet split into two and sailed in two directions. One of the fleets, which was slightly smaller, consisted of home ship, TOT, material storage ship, engineering ship and a few Golden Crow battleships. Under Zero's control, it slowly left the Gliese 555 star system and drove directly to Proxima B 17.55 light years away under the propulsion of the antimatter engine. The other fleet, full of hope for human civilization and carrying a large amount of antimatter seized from the Botha civilization, sailed to the target star system 42.3 light years away. After a short repair there, the fleet will set sail again and head for the nearest small black hole. 50 years later. Earth calendar year 2556. LV Yongchang's face turned slightly pale. He walked out of the hibernation cabin and came to the command center of the Earth. The command center was extremely deserted. He sat down slowly in his seat, staring blankly at the almost unchanging dark starry sky outside the porthole. Professor, the fleet successfully arrived at Proxima B a year ago. Currently, the surface infrastructure of Proxima B has been completed. A cold electronic synthesized voice sounded in the command center, and at the same time, a holographic picture appeared in front of him. Looking at the dense fleet around the white planet, LV Yongchang couldn't help but feel a pain in his heart. He took a deep breath, suppressed the discomfort in his body, and gave an order. Cutting plan. Start execution. Perhaps because he had just woken up from hibernation, he felt that the tone of his words was very strange. It was as if it was not spoken from his own mouth. Received. The electronic synthesized voice was the same as before, without any change. LV Yongchang slowly got up and walked to the porthole. Looking at the stars outside the porthole, a line of hot tears slid down his cheeks. The huge holographic projection behind him was playing real-time images of Proxima B. Proxima B. A year ago, Ren Feng woke up from hibernation and looked at the faint text in the holographic projection. With a relieved smile on his face. The engineering ship and the material reserve ship brought a large amount of materials to Proxima B, which directly changed the extremely scarce state of materials on Proxima B. The energy generated by the antimatter engine is far greater than the old fusion reactor they used. In just over 6 months, Proxima B has changed its appearance. With countless robots running at full power, tall surface cities stand on the ice field. At the same time, Proxima humans born in the nurturing center woke up from mild hibernation. Of course, those Proxima humans who were forced into hibernation were also awakened one by one. Then, when they learned about the tail cutting plan, they were sent to brand new surface cities. This caused a lot of confusion. After all, in the minds of Proxima humans, almost no one is willing to sacrifice their lives for another human civilization dozens of light years away. For a time, the promoters of this plan, Ren Feng and Zhang Zhenking, were nailed to the pillar of shame. They suffered all kinds of abuse day and night. As Lu Yongchang said, crimes against humanity are no longer enough to describe the crimes of the two. For this reason, the Parliament and the Academy of Sciences, which have recovered from hibernation, specially set up a new crime for the two crimes against civilization. On the day of the trial, Ren Feng and Zhang Zhenqing did not make any excuses for themselves under the rebuke and roar of countless people. The two were charged with this crime and sent to the execution ground at the same time. According to the latest law, they will be executed on the spot. Before the execution, Ren Feng looked at the excited crowd, his mouth slightly raised, revealing a faint smile. When the execution order was issued, the change happened. Zero took over the control of all equipment. At the same time, under the command of some human coalition forces who voluntarily participated in the tail-cutting plan, the Golden Crow battleship aimed its guns at Proxima B. The fuss is over. PS. Thanks to the great god certification of Yi Guangun. Ahem. Add more chapters. Wait until the Chinese New Year. I will try to write more during the Chinese New Year. Chapter 578. Oppose the tyranny of the people. 039. S Alliance. A few minutes ago. As the execution order was issued, the high-energy laser cannon set up on the execution ground slowly lifted up and began to adjust its posture. Considering the demands of the vast majority of Proxima Centauri humans, this execution was open to the public. Looking at the dense crowd around the execution ground and listening to the meaningless scolding from their mouths, Ren Feng's mouth corners slightly raised, revealing a faint smile. This scene was captured by the camera set up nearby and projected into a huge holographic projection, presenting it to the eyes of all Proxima Centauri humans in an instant. The extremely noisy scolding suddenly dissipated. There was a dead silence in the surface city. But this silence came quickly and went quickly. It only lasted for a few seconds before it was torn apart by even stronger scolding. Damn it, he's laughing. He's still laughing. Devil. He's a devil. Why hasn't the execution started yet? What are the Academy of Sciences and the Parliament waiting for? Traitors. Scum. How could we elect you as the president of the Parliament and the chief scientist? Listening to the extremely harsh remarks around him, Ren Feng still had a smile on his face. He glanced at the people around him, his eyes filled with regret and disappointment. Such a look immediately aroused stronger anger. But a subtle buzzing sound came from the execution ground, and at the same time, the originally azure holographic projection turned into a bloody color. Laser cannon charging. The appearance of this line of text instantly suppressed the extremely noisy sounds around. Everyone stopped shouting and cursed, and turned their eyes to the huge high-energy laser cannon. Ren Feng looked at the countdown that kept jumping in the holographic projection, and sighed slightly. Zhenqing, will you blame me? Not far away, a chuckle came from him. What are you talking about? I've been prepared for this since the day I knew your plan. Zhenqing's voice was a little weak, as if the experience of the past 2 days had completely exhausted his last bit of energy. I just hope that the last one will be painful. I'm afraid of pain. Ren Feng laughed dumbly, and the memory of hundreds of years ago suddenly emerged in his mind. The technical house that took him to the city management center when the disaster occurred. Don't worry, the high energy laser cannon has great power. It won't hurt. If you close your eyes, we will turn into ashes. As soon as the voice fell, the countdown had reached the last 3 seconds. Ren Feng subconsciously closed his eyes and counted silently in his heart, preparing to face the final judgment. 3, 2, 1, 0, -1, -2. Ren Feng's eyes twitched slightly, and a trace of doubt rose in his heart. He struggled to open his eyes and cast his gaze on the holographic projection in front of him. Just one glance, he was stunned. The countdown number stayed above 1 and never changed again. What's going on? The countdown is stuck. The next moment, the high-energy laser cannon that had been fully charged slowly lowered its muzzle, and the buzzing sound gradually disappeared. This change confused the Proxima Centauri humans gathered around. Gradually, the discussion grew louder. What's going on? What are the Parliament and the Academy of Sciences doing? Click. 2 crisp sounds rang in his ears amid the discussion. Ren Feng suddenly found that his tightly bound hands and feet could move freely. He slowly turned around, facing the eyes of the people around him, and looked around. Zhang Zhenking was paler this time, and he collapsed on the solid ground. Pull me. A mosquito-like voice sounded. Renfeng smiled and shook his head, moved his somewhat weak legs, came to Zhang Zhenking, and helped him up with difficulty. You are too timid, he joked with a smile. You can't stand this little scene. Zhang Zhenking didn't say anything, just looked down at Renfeng's slightly trembling legs, and smiled strangely. Cough. Ren Feng coughed lightly and quickly changed the subject. So, what happened? As soon as the voice fell, the execution countdown screen and the holographic projection suddenly disappeared, replaced by a tough man in military uniform. I declare that from now on, Proxima B will enter a state of martial law, and the Human Union fleet will take over all infrastructure. Ren Feng Zhang Zhenking acquitted. Boom. Just 2 sentences, and the quiet surface city boiled. Why? We need freedom. Oppose the tyranny of the Human Union. Oppose the Tail-Q-Toff plan. In the holographic projection, the man in military uniform showed a disdainful smile on his face. He sneered. Heh. Why? The holographic projection screen switched quietly. One after another, the huge Golden Crow battleships hovered in the synchronous orbit and aimed their guns at the surface cities of Proxima B. One after another, the small starships slowly sailed out from the hatches opened by the Golden Crow battleships. Unlike the Golden Crow battleships, these small starships only had 30 ships, and they were not conspicuous in front of the huge Proxima B. At the same time, the high-energy laser cannon that had originally lowered its muzzle raised its muzzle again. With a slight humming sound, it turned the muzzle around and aimed it at the crowd around it. Just with this, the officer's disdainful voice came from the loudspeaker. There was complete silence. In the distance, neat footsteps were heard. Next, the robots will take you back to your respective residences. From now on, all surface cities will be under curfew. The officer cast his eyes on Renfeng and Zhang Zhenking, who were standing in the middle of the execution ground with difficulty. The disdain in his eyes quickly dissipated, replaced by respect and admiration. He raised his right hand firmly and saluted the 2 people. On behalf of the People's Union, I thank you for your efforts. You are the heroes of human civilization. Ren Feng, who had been calm and had a faint smile on his lips, had red eyes at this moment. He slowly lowered his head, bowed and said, thank you. As the voice fell, the 2 robots slowly walked into the execution ground and came to the 2 people. Senator Renfeng, Chief Zhang Zhenking, please follow me. The electronic synthesized voice belonging to Zero sounded. Renfeng did not move at all and still kept bowing. I have a request. Please listen to me. You are too kind, the officer said solemnly. You are a hero of human civilization. As long as it is a reasonable request, we will do our best to meet it. Ren Feng slowly straightened his back and said softly, please don't make it too difficult for them. They are all poor people. Because of me, they have just been born into this world and have to face such a situation. Chapter 579 3 seconds of in the holographic screen, the officer was slightly moved. Under Renfeng's expectant gaze, he sighed softly. Speaker Ren, don't worry, the fleet brought a lot of supplies. As long as they abide by the rules, they can enjoy an extremely comfortable life. Hearing this, Renfeng seemed to have put down the burden in his heart and sighed deeply. Thank you, he said softly, took a somewhat stiff step, and followed the robot out of the execution ground. In the next few months, Renfeng and Zhang Zhenking lived in the Parliament building, silently watching the changes in Proxima B. It must be said that with a large amount of supplies and zero computing power support, Proxima B can be said to change every day. From decline to vitality, it only took 6 months. Senator Ren, the basic transformation of Proxima B has been completed. In the holographic projection, the officer said meticulously, according to the plan formulated by Professor Liu, the tail-cutting plan will be officially launched 6 months later, on January 1st, 2556 in the Earth calendar. Please be sure to keep it confidential. This is absolutely confidential. Ren Feng smiled faintly and nodded gently. Thank you for your hard work. Actually, You can also come to the surface city to rest for a while. The living conditions on the Golden Crow battleship are not very good. After all, there are only the last 6 months. The expression on the officer's face softened a little. Sorry, Senator N. In order to ensure the successful implementation of the tail-cutting plan, okay. Ren Feng shook his head helplessly. If the Proxima humans can be like the human fleet, I will not take this path. The officer did not speak, but stared at Ren Feng with a slightly serious expression. You've seen it, too, Ren. Feng's eyes were filled with disappointment and anger. What have they done in the past 6 months? Enjoyment. Endless enjoyment. What future does such a civilization have? It's better to. Ren Feng opened his mouth and swallowed the words that were about to come to his mouth. Sorry, I said too much. Don't notify me on the day when the tail-cutting plan is implemented. Looking at the pleading look in Ren Feng's eyes, the officer nodded silently. The holographic projection turned into a particle special effect and dissipated in the air. Ren Feng sighed and let his body fall on the sofa behind him. He looked at the extremely bright simulated sky outside the window and squinted his eyes slightly. It's so dazzling. Earth. Calendar year 2556. January 1st. It was late at night in the surface city of Proxima B. Under curfew, the streets were empty, and almost everyone ended a day of enjoyment and fell asleep. Tail breaking. Plan. Start executing. LV. Yongchang's voice echoed in every Golden Crow warship through the long-distance communication device. At this moment, Golden Crow battleships, TOT, material storage ships, engineering ships, home ships, all starships are neatly arranged around Proxima B, except for the 30-dimensional strike ships. A day ago, under Zero's control, they left the synchronous orbit of Proxima B and landed in a corner of Proxima B. The remains of a closed sanatorium stood quietly in the ice and snow. This sanatorium was abandoned hundreds of years ago. Except for a very small number of people. Basically no one knows what kind of person is sleeping in it. At some point, a laboratory was quietly built near the remains of the closed sanatorium. A full 30-dimensional strike ships were neatly parked in the open space in front of the laboratory. In the laboratory, under the watchful eyes of some officers disguised as researchers, one of the 2-dimensional fragment control devices quietly lifted all restrictions. The drama began. A researcher leaned over the console with a horrified look on his face, trying to press the buttons on the console. Several researchers stood there in a daze. Several other researchers turned around and ran away. Several researchers even sounded the highest alarm. The moment the alarm sounded, the actors arranged in the Academy of Sciences and the Parliament also began their own performances in the laboratory. A grey piece of paper slowly fell from the 2-dimensional fragment control device and gently touched the ground. Wow. 2-dimensionalization began. The first second. A chain reaction followed. One by one, the 2-dimensional fragment control devices lost control, and one by one, the 2-dimensional fragments gathered together, constantly increasing the scope of 2-dimensionalization. The entire laboratory turned into a huge scroll. In the scroll, the actions of each scientific researcher were frozen at the moment of 2-dimensionalization. 30 pieces of 2-dimensional fragments exploded at the same time, with great power. The next moment, the closed sanatorium that had stood for hundreds of years also became a corner of the picture. The picture expanded rapidly. The second. Finally, the starships neatly arranged around Proxima B also behind the scenes discovered this phenomenon. The light of the antimatter engine lit up. Almost at the same time, all the starships entered the forward 4 state. Some of the crew members who had not yet entered the deep sea cabin were directly crushed into a pile of meat patties by the huge acceleration. Half of Proxima B was swallowed into the scroll. The third. The entire Proxima B was completely swallowed into the scroll. None of the surrounding starships escaped, and all became part of this giant scroll. What a magnificent scroll this is. It is extremely large, occupying almost half of the space of the Proxima galaxy. In the scroll, a researcher looked terrified and tried to make up for it. In the scroll, a small number of people turned around and fled with fear on their faces, trying to escape the attraction of the scroll. In the scroll, countless humans were immersed in sleep, and even the expressions on their faces and the wriggling internal organs in their bodies could be clearly seen in the scroll. The light of the antimatter engine flashed at the tail of the starship, and inside the starship were clumps of flesh and blood that looked like amber. In the scroll, the internal structures of countless man-made devices were presented. In the scroll, every detail of Proxima b was presented. Even a grain of sand in the soil, a bacterium, were clearly visible. The tail-cutting plan lasted for a total of 3 seconds. The extremely strong two-dimensional fluctuations became a beacon, illuminating the entire Milky Way. The strong light emitted during the two-dimensionalization process even overshadowed the dim main star Proxima Centauri, becoming the brightest star in this star field. Professor, the signal has been interrupted. The tail-cutting plan has been successfully implemented. The electronic synthesized voice sounded in the cabin point in the reflection of the porthole. Yongchang's face became paler and paler. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 580 Coincidence? Since the departure of the human fleet, the Gliese 555 star system has returned to its original tranquility point. Only the warship wreckage is floating around in the star system, as well as the various artificial facilities on Dawn and Lumina, prove to this universe what happened in the past. The periphery of the Gliese 555 star system. The stellar wind from the main star Gliese 555 slowly drifted by. After a long journey, it was exhausted. Finally, it formed a clever balance with the interstellar medium in this intersection zone. This is the edge of the Gliese 555 star system. The stellar wind and the interstellar medium interacted with each other, forming a bow shock wave. The hydrogen wall, in the direction of the star system's movement around the Milky Way. In the hydrogen wall, the particles move at a very high speed. So from a microscopic point of view, it has an extremely high temperature point, but because it is very thin, so thin that there are only single-digit particles per unit area, and the extremely long distance between it and the main star, it is very cold from a macroscopic point of view. Outside this hot and cold hydrogen wall is the empty interstellar space. Ordinary civilizations cannot detect the existence of dark matter. And even if they do, it is difficult to use it. Therefore, interstellar space filled with dark matter has always been stable. On this day, the usually stable interstellar space, like a crumpled piece of paper, showed ripples. These ripples gradually converged and eventually formed a sphere without a substance. Wormhole. Like a black hole, there is an extremely powerful gravitational lens effect around the wormhole point, but it is completely different from a black hole point. No matter which direction you observe from, you can see fine and then slight spots appearing on the surface of the wormhole point. That is starlight. Starlight at an infinite distance. The next moment. Accompanied by a slight distortion, 3 spherical battleships emerged from the wormhole and suddenly appeared in this desolate interstellar space. After a short stop, the 3 spherical battleships flew straight to the Gliese 555 star system. Not far away like ghosts, sir. A communication request from the 3TCS0026B4, Gliese 555 star system has been detected in the extremely smooth planetary fortress in the central black hole region of the Milky Way. An extremely obscure voice was heard. 3TCS0026B4 star system. Sweeper 9527 showed some doubts in his eyes, but as the external memory storage device was running, it quickly remembered this matter. Did they find human civilization? Soon, a subordinate responded from the side. No, they only found the remains of human civilization. As the voice fell, a light curtain appeared in front of Sweeper 9527. In the light curtain, there was a planet with most of the area showing azure blue. A satellite with artificial facilities on its surface was slowly rotating around the planet. Sweeper 9527 did not pay too much attention to the azure planet. It's just a planet, and the most abundant thing in the universe is planets. Its eyes stayed on the small satellite. In its opinion, the facilities on the surface of this satellite are very simple, and the internal space is not well utilized, although there are countless defects. It still has the prototype of a planetary fortress. Sweeper 9527 slightly raised his evaluation of human civilization point. Although human civilization is just a large bug that has not mastered the grand unified theory, the ability to complete such a huge project undoubtedly proves their potential. At the same time, the battleship discovered the wreckage of the battleship of the Botha civilization around the planet. As the voice of the subordinate came, the light curtain quickly split into two, and the other half of the light curtain showed various battleship wreckage distributed in the Gliese 555 star system. It seems that the Botha civilization didn't get any benefits. Sweeper 9527 showed some dissatisfaction in his eyes. What a waste. A civilization that has mastered the grand unified theory can't even delay time. The subordinate raised his tentacles and scratched his head gently. Sir, after all, it is just a subsidiary civilization. It is normal to be weak. At least, they destroyed all the valuable devices in the warship in advance. Hearing this, the anger on Sweeper 9527's face eased a little. Sir, what should we do now? The subordinate's voice continued to come. Continue to look for traces of human civilization in the surrounding area. They haven't mastered the curvature navigation technology yet, and they can't escape far. Sweeper 9527 pondered for a moment, and when he was about to nod in agreement, a sharp alarm interrupted his thoughts. Sir, an abnormal fluctuation point was found in the galaxy bridge area. A hurried voice came. Preliminary judgment is that it is a wormhole created by the pastoral sect. Time. The face of Sweeper 9527 suddenly became solemn. The judgment of the mother civilization is not wrong. The pastoral sect, as expected, is here. Human civilization successfully escaped. The pastoral sect just arrived in the Milky Way. Sweeper 9527 waved his tentacles unconsciously, and the expression on his face became more and more tangled. Is this a coincidence, or thinking of the detected destroyed in the two-dimensional attack? Sweeper 9527 felt more and more uneasy. Pondered for a moment and used a tentacle to pull the light curtain next to it. This matter is too serious. It needs to ask the mother civilization. After a short wait, the communication was successfully established, but between human civilization and the pastoral school. Sweeper 9527 said anxiously. An extremely arrogant voice sounded in the cabin. 9527, you are too timid. This is why you were sent to this remote area of the Milky Way. It's just a small fourth level civilization, and it doesn't even have a grand unified theory. How big a storm can it cause? Remember, your most important task now is to deal with the pastoral school civilization that is about to arrive in the Milky Way. Don't let me down. The light curtain dissipated. The 6 tentacles of Sweeper 9527 slowly dropped, and it said in a dull voice, tell the 3 battleships to go to the galaxy bridge area immediately. Start the wormhole jump engine. It's time for us to set off, Commander. The subordinate said hesitantly. Do we need to leave an battleship to search the surrounding area? A hint of desire flashed in Sweeper 9527's eyes, but when he thought of the scolding words of the mother civilization just now, he was instantly discouraged and said, forget it. Listen to the arrangements of the mother civilization. The mother civilization is right. The pastoral civilization is the one we should pay attention to. If human civilization is really a pawn of the pastoral civilization, we only need to keep an eye on the pastoral civilization. Sweeper 9527 comforted himself. Chapter 581 4-Dimensional Weapons. Earth Calendar Year 2556. Professor, the tail docking plan has been successfully implemented. Zeros voice rang in Yongchang's ears, deeply hurting his heart. He opened his eyes as wide as possible and looked in the direction of the Proxima Centauri galaxy. Professor, according to calculation results, the light emitted by Proxima b in 2 dimensions will reach the People's Alliance fleet after 30 years. Zero reminded softly. Of course I know. Yongchang still stared at his sour eyes, and 2 lines of hot tears fell uncontrollably from both sides of his cheeks. I just want to see them one last time. Professor, I don't understand. The brightness of Proxima Centauri has been greatly reduced. Your naked eyes cannot observe Proxima Centauri at this time. Of course you don't understand. Lu Yongchang sighed, shook his head and stopped talking. He just stared at the starry sky in the distance silently. I don't know how long it took, but a slight sound of footsteps came from behind Yongchang. This familiar voice made Lu Yongchang's heart tremble slightly. Why are you awake? Before the interstellar voyage started, I gave orders to Zero. Su Yutang walked to Lu Yongchang's side and looked up at the starry sky in the infinite distance. Has the tail docking plan been implemented? Lu Yongchang struggled to squeeze out a response from deep in his throat. The next moment, he felt a touch of warmth coming from his fingertips. It's not your fault, Su Yutang said softly in an angry voice. But I gave the order, Lu Yongchang murmured to himself as his body trembled slightly. Su Yutang did not continue to speak, but just turned his head and leaned lightly on the shoulder of the person next to him. Feeling the softness and warmth gradually approaching from his side, Lu Yongchang subconsciously tightened his body back. Then, you promised to accompany me to watch the stars on Dawnstar. An extremely soft voice floated into his ears. Lu Yongchang looked slightly suffocated. I'm sorry, I need to apologize. Su Yutang chuckled and leaned on Lu Yongchang. Just now, Lu Yongchang was stunned for a moment, then realized what he was doing. Good. After a moment of silence, he raised his hand, gently hugged Su Yutang beside him, and responded in a low voice. On the other side, the edge of the Milky Way, the galaxy bridge area. This sudden war has lasted for decades. At the beginning of the war, pastoralists, Shi and Silk, relied on their weird dimensional attack capabilities to cause considerable damage to the battleships of the sweeper civilization. This material poor battlefield is filled with dense clumps of threads and the remains of life forms of the sweeper civilization. But when the planetary fortress of the sweeper civilization reached the battlefield across thousands of light years, the situation was reversed. In interstellar space, the extremely stable dark matter fluctuates under the intervention of unknown means. It became the most powerful spear and shield. Explosions that occur anytime and anywhere constantly block the progress of the two-dimensional creatures. The shield made of a large amount of dark matter blocks weird dimensional attacks time and time again. As the violent gravitational force surges, it continues to affect the surrounding stars. These stars, big or small, are like stones on a trebuchet, being thrown towards the target area. Collisions between stars create supernova explosions one after another, along with endless gamma ray bursts. Small black holes appeared in this area, like deadly traps. It lies between the two civilizations. The war between the most advanced civilizations in the universe has turned this area into a real dead zone. Although these attacks effectively curbed the movements of the two-dimensional creatures, they did not really harm the bodies of Shi and Silk. As dimensional creatures, they have a natural advantage. This kind of conventional attack can do extremely limited damage to them. Until the sweeper civilization took out the dimensional weapons at the bottom of the box. The flickering light points flew out from the planetary fortress and were extremely inconspicuous in the battlefield, filled with explosions and radiation. 4-dimensional shock bomb. She helped me stop it. C gave up on an battleship that was about to be captured in front of it and retreated towards the edge of the battlefield in great horror. At the same time, it sent out a cry for help to Shi beside it. Almost at the same time, Shi's projection in the three-dimensional universe quickly enlarged and stopped directly in front of that inconspicuous light spot. The next second, the two came into contact with each other. The light spot suddenly exploded. A hypersphere that is difficult to express in words appears in the universe. In an instant, the hypersphere exploded. A shock wave that cannot be observed in the three-dimensional universe passes through the surrounding dark matter and quickly spreads around. If you switch the perspective to 4 dimensions, you can see an extremely magnificent scene. Huge waves set off on the ocean, composed of dark matter. The huge waves spread rapidly around. As for time, it is a small soap bubble above the ocean. Under the impact of huge waves, the soap bubbles teetered. Time, the projection in the three-dimensional universe vibrated at a magnitude visible to the naked eye. Then, as if some kind of boundary had been broken, three-dimensional entities continued to appear out of thin air in the shadow area. Some were standard spheres, and some were it's a standard cube, cylinder. After a few seconds, these three-dimensional entities no longer appeared, and the three-dimensional projection range of time also shrank by a circle visibly to the naked eye point afterwards. The two-dimensional creatures quickly retreated and distanced themselves from the planetary fortress of the sweeper civilization. Damn it, they actually still have this weapon. C was shocked and angry as she conveyed the message to she, how are you? I'm okay. The shadow area was still trembling slightly, and a message was transmitted. The damage of the four-dimensional shock bomb to me is limited. What should we do now? Silk asked again. We are not sure how many four-dimensional shock bombs they have. Don't forget, the painting was injured by it. Let's take a look at the situation first. The three-dimensional projection of time gradually returned to stability and pulled the Silk away towards the outside of the Milky Way point. The next moment, a strange fluctuation came. She and C retreated suddenly. Two-dimensional fluctuations. Paint is not dead. Can you determine the location? After hearing C's inquiry, she felt it carefully for a moment and said with an extremely certain tone, in the direction of the spiral arm of Orion. In the distance, the fleet of the sweeper civilization also experienced some turmoil. Point obviously, they also noticed this extremely powerful two-dimensional fluctuation. Chapter 582 Wormhole Interference. The next moment, as a strange wave came from the fleet of the sweeper civilization, the projection of she in the three-dimensional universe also fluctuated a bit. Damn it, the sweeper is trying to open a wormhole. She's tone suddenly became stronger because of the problem of perception. C was slow to realize it and became excited. Point in the universe, the twisting amplitude of this huge ball of silk thread increased a lot. What are you waiting for? Open the wormhole quickly. We must not let the sweeper get to that starfield before us. In the face of C's urging, she responded angrily, of course I know. We are too close to them. Do you know about wormhole interference? C was silent. Point. Although it did not master the wormhole jump technology as an 8th level civilization, this basic knowledge is still clear. When two wormholes are close to each other, there is a high probability that they will interfere with each other. Point. Merge or dissipate. Merge is a small matter. Once they dissipate, who knows where they will end up. Looking at the gradually taking shape of the spherical distorted space in the distance, the silk thread twisted more and more violently. Then we just watch. Silk sent a message to time unwillingly. Of course not. Time sneered. Don't forget how the sweepers mastered the four-dimensional attack ability and wormhole jump technology. You mean that bubble? Silk was stunned for a moment and then realized the hidden meaning in Time's words. Of course. Time's tone became more and more disdainful. I said at the time that the sweepers must not get that bubble. You see, it only took them 100,000 years to obtain the four-dimensional attack technology and wormhole jump technology from that bubble. The days of our pastoral school were not so difficult before. As he spoke, the spherical distorted space in the sweeper civilization fleet in the distance had already taken shape. Point. A twisted sphere with starlight on its surface was quietly suspended in the center of the fleet. Point. Seeing this scene, she's tone was slightly relieved. Fortunately, the sweeper's analysis of the four-dimensional world is not deep enough. They are still immature in wormhole jump technology. During the conversation, the planetary fortress and fleet of the sweeper civilization disappeared suddenly after approaching the twisted sphere. Point. This space full of radiation suddenly became a little deserted. Let's go. She looked at the wormhole channel that was slowly dissipating from a distance and shouted softly, let's go. Where to? C still hadn't reacted yet and asked, she's Three-dimensional projection fluctuated violently twice, as if it was angered by C's slow reaction point. The next second, the shadow instantly expanded, wrapped the twisting silk thread, and rushed towards the wormhole point under C's control. The surrounding dark matter fluctuated slowly, stabilizing the wormhole that was about to dissipate. Then, two-dimensional creatures rushed directly into it. Follow closely. After entering the wormhole, C's tone suddenly became serious. Wormholes are not three-dimensional universes, let alone your pitiful one-dimensional world. If you take a wrong step, you may miss your destination. I won't look for you then. C didn't say anything, just tried to keep up with C's pace as much as possible. Sweeper, she snid, and then chose a completely different direction from the sweeper fleet. Alpha Centauri triple star system point. The light of the third star is extremely dim, like a discarded child abandoned in the cold universe. Looking far away at the vibrant binary star system in the distance, point at his Proxima Centauri point in the Proxima galaxy. A picture scroll with an extremely large area and no thickness quietly stays in the universe. Point. Some wrinkles are appearing at the edge of the picture scroll. Point. The wrinkles gradually deepened, and gradually, it showed the attribute of thickness with the emergence of the dimensionality upgrading phenomenon. This inconspicuous corner of the painting gradually disappeared in the cold universe. Point. But because of its extremely large area, the entire dimensionality upgrading dissipation process takes a lot of time. Point. Outskirts of the Proxima galaxy. Point. The calm interstellar space suddenly showed some fluctuations. A twisted sphere slowly appeared from nothing in a remote corner of the Milky Way. Point. The next moment, the fluctuations intensified instantly. Point. A shadow and a ball of silk emerged from the twisted sphere. Point. They are the idyllic dimensional creatures that came from tens of thousands of light years away. Time and silk. The moment they left the wormhole, their attention was quickly attracted by the extremely dim star, HMM, a red dwarf whose lifespan is almost exhausted. Silk's tone was full of confusion. What's going on? She glanced at it, and as a four-dimensional creature, it quickly understood the truth. The good work of the sweeper civilization, the star devourer, almost sucked this red dwarf dry. Silk was silent for a while, and then said angrily, "Damn sweepers, if it weren't for them, how could this universe become so cold?" She sighed slightly and quickly flew in the direction of the two-dimensional fluctuations. Soon, a huge and spectacular picture appeared in their eyes. Various details were roughly stacked together, and the colorful picture looked extremely messy. Point. But as dimensional creatures, she and C relied on their instincts to quickly get the information they wanted from this messy picture. "This is two-dimensional planet," C whispered softly. "More than a planet." She's tone was very serious. "There is civilization on this planet. They have mastered the antimatter engine and should be a fourth-level technological civilization." The shadow swept past the picture and quickly read what happened in the picture. Human civilization. When the familiar characteristics of civilization appeared in its mind, it suddenly realized a problem. Point. It seems that the civilization in the picture in front of it is a human civilization that Hua announced to the universe before his death. Why did human civilization appear in this star system that was hit by the sweeper civilization? Why did they perish in this huge two-dimensional fragment? What did Hua mean by being careful of human civilization? Questions arose in she and C's minds, driving them to speed up their exploration. Point. Restoring all the information of the entire two-dimensional scroll was a big project, even for them. Chapter 583 Scroll and Bubbles. In order to increase the efficiency of exploration, she and Silk started exploring from two directions of the scroll. Point. Starships, satellites, space elevators, planetary surface structures, soil, microorganisms, minerals, human appearance, internal organs, cell structure. Various details were presented one by one in the minds of the two-dimensional creatures. The scene when the two-dimensionalization occurred was gradually restored. After she and C exchanged information, they let out a long sigh. They seemed to want to study the two-dimensional fragments left behind by painting. An accident occurred during the research process, causing a two-dimensional fragment to explode, causing a chain reaction in The end. The entire planet and civilization were dragged into the abyss of destruction. As a 4th level civilization, you actually want to pry into the secrets of the dimension. You deserve it. The message sent by Silk was full of disdain. How can the dimension be pried into by ordinary civilizations? Sat. Civilization. She said softly. It's not their fault either. Curiosity about the unknown is a necessity for every interstellar civilization. They're just too curious. C was silent for a moment and said again. The message sent by painting. The shadow fluctuated slightly. Human civilization has become extinct. What else should we be careful about? I'm just worried. C said cautiously. How about you take a closer look? The shadow fluctuations became more and more violent. You should have seen that these weak creatures did not expect the disaster to happen. Look at their movements and the way those starships didn't have time to escape. What else is there to explore? Looking through the timeline is so exhausting. A small 4th level civilization is not worthy of my spending so much energy. But Hua. C seemed to want to say something more, but was directly interrupted by the message sent by she. Okay, the sweeper civilization is coming. 100,000 years ago, they got the bubble. In 100,000 years, we will never let them get the scroll. Don't forget, painting is dead. With the help of painting scrolls, it is possible for us to master 2 dimensions. As soon as she finished speaking, a slight fluctuation came from outside the star system point. Spherical battleships slowly emerged in the empty space point just like pastoral dimensional creatures. After leaving the wormhole, Sweeper 9527's eyes subconsciously turned to the extremely dim star. The working indicator light of the external memory storage device flashes rapidly. Point soon. It recalled the information that had been stored in the far corner of its memory. This is the red dwarf star that was attacked by the Star Eater. Cleaner. 9527 said softly. I remember. Within the star system, a group of twisting threads and a shadow instantly attracted his attention. Damn. Pastoral. Obviously. We set off first. Why are they already here? The next moment, it noticed the huge picture in the star system. This is a 2-dimensional planet. Cleaner. 9527's eyes lit up, and his original anger dissipated. He laughed loudly, and the 6 tentacles on his body trembled slowly. It took no effort at all. Although painting is dead, with it, the mother civilization can still carry out 2-dimensional research. Sir, there's a problem. A subordinate looked at the data in the light curtain, and said with some confusion, there seems to be something else in the 2-dimensional fragments. A light curtain appeared beside Sweeper 9527. Looking at the colorful pictures, it frowned tightly. Preliminary judgment. It seems to be a civilization. The subordinate reminded in a low voice. Restore relevant information immediately. Following the order from Sweeper 9527, the shipboard computer began to perform calculation tasks under a special algorithm. The flat 2-dimensional image is gradually restored to a 3-dimensional image. Human civilization. Cleaner. 9527 couldn't help but froze in place as he looked at the series of civilized features. No, there seems to be traces of another civilization's existence. Sweeper 9527 had some understanding. It should be the traces left by the indigenous civilization that was exterminated by the Star Eater. But isn't human civilization a pawn of the pastoralists? Why is it 2-dimensional, like the pastoral creatures? Countless doubts also appeared in the mind of Sweeper 9527. As the calculation progress continues to advance, Sweeper 9527 gradually understands the so-called truth point. After experiencing 2 wars between the Sweeper civilization probe and the Botha civilization, human civilization resolutely left the Gliese 555 star system point. Perhaps because they experienced 2 consecutive wars, the courage of this 4th level civilization was completely frightened, and they set their immigration targets on some inconspicuous star systems. The main star Proxima Centauri has entered its old age, and the resources in the star system are extremely scarce, which will hardly attract the prying eyes of other civilizations. For these reasons, The Proxima Centauri galaxy, which is 17.55 light years away, has become the goal of human civilization. After arriving in the Proxima galaxy, human civilization began to build infrastructure based on the extinct indigenous civilization and embarked on the path of development again. Perhaps because of the powerful power of the two-dimensional fragments, the human civilization, which was in urgent need of a powerful weapon, set its sights on the two-dimensional fragments left by the painting. Tragedy was born. The two-dimensional fragments went out of control and triggered a chain reaction. Under the joint action of dozens of two-dimensional fragments, the entire planet was two-dimensionalized. This process was too fast, and even the starships docked around the planet had no time to escape. Looking at the amber-like bloody meat cakes in the starship due to acceleration, Sweeper 9527 shook his head with regret. Try to study two-dimensional fragments. Sweeper 9527 looked at the information in the light screen with a strange look and muttered to himself, "It's really ignorant, and dimensional technology can also be touched by the fourth level civilization. Report to the mother civilization." Looking at the wrinkles that kept emerging at the edge of the scroll and the corners that continued to rise in dimension, Sweeper 9527's tone suddenly became serious. "We have discovered a super large two-dimensional fragment, codenamed Scroll. We are currently in a standoff with the Pastoral School, Time, and Silk. We request reinforcement from the mother civilization. In addition, human civilization has been confirmed to be extinct in the two-dimensional scroll. The arrest warrant for human civilization has been cancelled. The war broke out again. There was no sign. Unlike the battle in the edge of the Milky Way, both sides of the war were extremely restrained at this moment. This war between advanced civilizations was controlled within a light-year range. Whether it was the Pastoral School dimensional creatures or the planetary fortresses of the Sweeper civilization, they deliberately restrained their attacks, fearing that the aftermath of the war would destroy the precious scroll. Chapter 584 Abnormal Gravitational Waves. Earth calendar year 2620. A dusty fleet is slowly slowing down. After a century-long interstellar journey, these starships are no longer as bright and beautiful as before, and their surfaces are full of traces of time. In front of the fleet is a star emitting gentle light, a red dwarf. Gliese 3929. This is a number given to it by human civilization. This is the destination of the human fleet's interstellar voyage. According to the plan formulated by the Academy of Sciences, the human fleet will rest and recuperate in the Gliese 3929 star system. After replenishing the necessary supplies, they will go to find the black hole 95 light years away. The target star system is about to arrive, and the probe is being released. Inside Earth, a line of text flashed in the holographic projection in the central computer area. The next moment, under Zero's control, a large number of probes emerged from the starships one after another with their small size and the powerful power of the antimatter engine. These detectors are speeding towards the Gliese 3929 star system, not far away at a speed far higher than the fleet's. The detector has been successfully released, the preset program is activated, and the wake-up program is being executed. The bright lights, the slightly stiff electronic synthesized sound, and the constantly changing gestures of the robot beside Yongchang looked at everything in front of him in a trance. His memory still stayed in the days when the tail-cutting plan was successfully implemented. He lowered his head and moved his fingers gently. Su Yutang's body temperature seemed to still remain on his fingers, but the time has come to 2620. The time span of 64 years brought Yongchang an extremely complex sense of dislocation, and with it, a sense of unreality. "Professor, please cooperate in answering this question. I need to confirm your mental state, perhaps." Because he found that Yongchang had not responded for a long time, Zero's electronic synthesized sound suddenly increased a few points. Yongchang shuddered slightly, and his distracted eyes gradually became more lively. "Zero, are there any abnormal phenomena in the direction of Proxima?" After his mental state recovered a little, Yongchang remembered the purpose of setting up the awakening program. The fleet and the Proxima galaxy are too far apart, and even light needs more than 30 years To complete this journey point in order to ensure that all possible changes are observed before the second hibernation, he gave an order to Zero when the human fleet is about to arrive at the Gliese. 3929 star system. Wake him up again. LV Yongchang struggled to move his somewhat stiff body and struggled to float out of the hibernation cabin. Looking at the deep sea liquid floating in the air around him, an idea suddenly flashed through his mind. When we reach the black hole and solve the superstring gravitational field equation, we must put artificial gravity technology on the agenda as soon as possible. But what will a black hole look like? Humans have not observed a black hole with their naked eyes yet, perhaps because of the long hibernation. LV Yongchang's thoughts seemed extremely jumpy. It took less than a second for his mind to fly 95 light years away. He was so absorbed in his thoughts that he didn't even notice the holographic image unfolding in front of him. Until Zero's reminder sounded again, pulling his erratic thoughts back. Professor, all observation phenomena have been sorted out. LV Yongchang, who came back to his senses, raised his hand and carefully read the complicated observation data. After 64 years of continuous observation, the amount of data generated is extremely large. Even if Zero has screened and streamlined it, it is still a lot of work to read all the data. On March 26, 2588 of the Earth calendar, the target star system showed abnormal conditions for the first time. The highlighted text quickly attracted LV Yongchang's attention. LV Yongchang moved his fingers slightly and called up the observation record of the optical telescope. The holographic image screen darkened instantly. The boundless and ethereal universe appeared before his eyes in the center of the picture. There is a star with extremely dim light. Not far to the side, there are two planets with strong light orbiting each other. This is the Alpha Centauri triple star system. LV Yongchang did not pay attention to the two energetic binary star systems. He focused all his attention on the dim star in the center of the picture. Time passed by minute. Seeing that the progress bar was about to reach that critical node, he subconsciously held his breath. Wow. Suddenly, this dim and almost imperceptible star released an extremely brilliant light. No. Wrong, as the optical telescope was constantly adjusted, LV Yongchang clearly observed that this extremely strong light appeared from the side of the star. Because the two are too close, at first glance, it is easy to see it as a strong light released by Proxima Centauri. This sudden flash reached its peak brightness in just 3 seconds. It not only overshadowed Proxima Centauri next to it, but also overwhelmed the Alpha Centauri binary star system. Not far away, even, its brightness surpassed the brightest star in the sky for a short time. At this moment, the Proxima galaxy became the most conspicuous existence in the sky. It came quickly and went quickly. After a few seconds, this sudden flash gradually dimmed. Proxima Centauri gradually returned to its original inconspicuous appearance. The observation record was over. LV Yongchang exhaled deeply, and a bit of bitterness appeared in his eyes. Is this the power of 32-dimensional fragments exploding at the same time? 3 seconds. It only takes 3 seconds to two-dimensionalize a planet. LV Yongchang muttered bitterly. These are just some insignificant two-dimensional fragments on painting. If painting is compared to humans, these two-dimensional fragments may be equivalent to some dandruff. But even so, the lethality it causes is beyond the reach of human civilization. He couldn't imagine how powerful the complete painting was and what means should the sweeper civilization that injured it have. What kind of magnificent momentum should the war between two advanced civilizations have? With such doubts, LV Yongchang gently waved his hand and swiped the optical observation screen in front of him aside. His eyes were cast on the rest of the data specially marked by 0. Time passed by bit. LV Yongchang put all the useless data aside. Suddenly, LV Yongchang stopped moving. Abnormal gravitational waves. Looking at the observation data in the holographic projection, LV Yongchang felt a little bit of anticipation. 0. Extract all the abnormal gravitational wave data in the past 64 years. Chapter 585. Aftermath of War. After the words fell, the content in the holographic projection changed rapidly. Once, twice, 3 times. At first, abnormal gravitational waves appeared concentrated near the Proxima Centauri galaxy point. Gradually, as the location where gravitational waves appear gradually deviates from the Alpha Centauri galaxy, the frequency of gravitational waves also increases at an extremely high speed. The starfield near Proxima Centauri is like a randomly strummed string, emitting its own voice to the entire galaxy. It was not until 10 years ago, in the year 2610 of the Earth's calendar, that these complex and extremely violent gravitational waves completely dissipated. Observation of gravitational waves is very difficult. On the one hand, it is because the distance is too far, and on the other hand, the gravitational waves of most stars are too weak. Under normal circumstances, only when extreme celestial phenomena such as black hole mergers or neutron star mergers occur, sufficiently powerful gravitational waves will be emitted. But this is a rare phenomenon after all. The spectacular scene in front of us can only be a masterpiece of advanced civilization. Is there a war between the sweeper civilization and the pastoral civilization? A hint of understanding appeared in Yongchang's eyes, and he murmured to himself. The next moment, excitement showed on his face. Beat. It's better to fight. These two advanced civilizations are at each other's throats, and only the ant-like human civilization has a chance to escape. Yongchang took a deep breath to calm down his inner excitement. Wait. It's not confirmed yet. Just the discovery of gravitational wave data doesn't prove that there was a war between the two civilizations. Yongchang said to himself in a hurry. Suddenly he seemed to realize something and shouted loudly, "Zero, I'm here." The electronic synthesizer sounded, "Bring me all the images taken by optical telescopes in the past 64 years, thinking of the locations where those abnormal gravitational waves appeared." Yongchang quickly corrected, "Wait a minute, I don't want the observation picture of Proxima Centauri. I need observational images of 50 light years around Proxima Centauri." Receive. The next moment, the lights in the room automatically turned off, and the holographic image in front of him spread instantly, until it filled the entire room. Miniature models of shining stars fill every corner of the room. At this time, Yongchang seemed to be floating in the vast universe. He gently pushed the hibernation cabin in front of him, and with the help of the reaction force, he slid to the corner of the room. 0. Start playing. The acceleration rate, 0.500,000 times. As soon as he finished speaking, the starry sky that filled the room began to change rapidly. Even with an acceleration of 500,000 times, it would still take 1.12 hours to view the entire holographic image. Yongchang did some simple mental calculations and stretched out his hand to drag the progress bar of the holographic image to the 33-minute position. About 30 seconds later, the timeline reached the year 2588. A dazzling light flashed across the Proxima Centauri region. Proxima Centauri B has been made two-dimensional. Time continues to pass. A bright white, slowly floating ripple appears near the Proxima Centauri galaxy point. That was the first anomalous gravitational wave. With almost no waiting, a second anomalous gravitational wave appeared at the same location. Then, several flashes of varying intensity appeared near the Proxima Centauri galaxy. The third bright white ripple appears 1.28 light years away from Proxima Centauri. At the same time, a rapid flash of light also appeared in this area. Time flies. The fourth, the fifth, the sixth, densely packed bright white ripples appeared in front of Yongchang. Each bright white ripple represented an abnormal gravitational wave data. Without exception, the locations where these ripples appear are rapidly moving away from Proxima Centauri. Yongchang thought for a moment, and soon realized the purpose of this behavior. In order not to destroy the two-dimensional Proxima Centauri B, the bright white ripples become increasingly dense. If the three-dimensional universe is compared to a pond, under normal conditions, this pond should be calm with no ripples on the water surface. But now, it is like being in a heavy rain. Every raindrop will splash large or small ripples on the water surface and spread to all directions. These ripples are either superimposed or offset, gradually spreading throughout the starfield. The next second, Yongchang's eyes suddenly widened. The brightness of a dim star suddenly increased several times, and then countless materials with strong light were ejected to the surrounding area, forming a small nebula. It exploded. Yongchang only felt his heart tremble slightly. No more evidence is needed. This is the war of advanced civilization. The explosion of this star does not mean the end, but the real beginning of the war. In the distance, with bright white ripples emerging, a star seemed to be inexplicably attracted and deviated from its original trajectory. Like a stone on a sling, it flew straight towards the adjacent star system. That's Gliese 555. Looking at the label given by Ling, Yongchang felt his heartbeat skip a beat. Boom. Two stars collided and exploded. Gliese 555 is gone. Yongchang swallowed hard, his eyes filled with endless fear. If we still stay in that place, even though the surroundings were very warm, he still felt a biting chill rising behind him. He shuddered violently. Is this the war between advanced civilizations? He muttered to himself. As time went by, stars went out one after another, and a huge nebula appeared. Looking at the bright white ripples that gradually decreased in frequency, Yongchang breathed a sigh of relief. The last bright white ripple disappeared, and the war was completely over. In Yongchang's mind, a thought emerged involuntarily. I wonder who won this war. Looking at the nebula that spread for dozens of light years in front of him, Yongchang subconsciously cast his eyes towards the corner in his memory. Perhaps it was because of the close distance to the Proxima Centauri galaxy. The solar system still stayed quietly in that corner, and was not affected by the war. However, because of the star devourer, its brightness had long been dimmed. Yongchang breathed a sigh of relief, and the sense of uneasiness in his heart was slightly reduced. Lucky, the solar system is still there. Swish. The holographic image disappeared, and the room was dark. Yongchang stood there in a daze, his heart beating violently in his chest, and could not calm down. Although there was no sound, and no specific picture, he still felt the powerful strength of the advanced civilization. Since leaving the Earth, this is the first time he has directly felt the weakness of human civilization. P.S. Thanks to Durga from Blackfire City for his great certification. Chapter 586 Gliese 3929 Star System. Professor, accompanied by an electronic synthesized sound, the azure holographic projection appeared in front of Yongchang again, pulling his thoughts back from infinity. The probe has arrived at the Gliese 3929 star system, and the preliminary exploration data has been sent back. Do you want to check it? The electronic synthesized sound without any fluctuations gradually calmed Yongchang's intense heartbeat. He then remembered the second purpose of setting the alarm clock, to assign corresponding production and construction tasks to zero according to the specific conditions of the star system. Theoretically, as a strong artificial intelligence, Zero should have sufficient judgment ability for various emergencies, but related to the future of human civilization, he had to be cautious while thinking about the materials urgently needed by the human fleet. Yongchang nodded. Wow, the incandescent light once again filled the entire room, and the azure holographic image gradually enlarged. The sudden strong light made Yongchang subconsciously squint his eyes. The next moment, the room lights dimmed rapidly and automatically adjusted to the brightness he felt comfortable with. Professor, according to the data sent back by the probe, there are 2 solid planets and 1 gas giant in this star system. A star map slowly appeared in the holographic projection. Yongchang carefully read the various data sent back by the probe. According to the data sent back by the probe, the 2 solid planets are slightly different. Among them, the solid planet close to the main star is more similar to Mercury. It can be easily judged from its mass, volume, and density data that under the silicate shell, there is a high probability that there is a huge reserve of iron and nickel core. As for the other solid planet, because it is far away from the main star and the atmosphere is relatively thin, it is an extremely cold world. The surface is extremely dry, with only a small amount of solid ice. and there is almost no mining value point. It can be said that this is an extremely barren planet point, not to mention the gas giant planet point at any time. It is a qualified energy replenishment station point, even though the human fleet has used antimatter engines. Helium-3 is still an indispensable energy reserve in the fleet point. There are two main reasons. On the one hand, antimatter production is difficult and relatively expensive. On the other hand, antimatter energy is too wasteful when used on some equipment point. In addition to helium-3, a fusion raw material, a large amount of hydrogen in gas giant planets can also be used as a raw material to drive antimatter engines. Usually, antimatter engines choose to annihilate antihydrogen and hydrogen to generate energy point. After all, hydrogen is extremely common in the universe, and antihydrogen is relatively easy to produce. LV Yongchang retracted his gaze, frowned slightly, and carefully thought about the next construction plan. First, reorganize the Dyson Cloud antimatter production and reserve base and list it as the first priority task. While speaking, he stretched out his hand and gently tapped the star in the star map. Received. Engineering ships and TOT are being dispatched to the target area. As the electronic synthesized sound sounded, a part of the starship broke away from the main force and flew straight to the distant star, emitting light and heat. Next is the second priority construction task: build mineral mining facilities and starship manufacturing plants near Gliese 3929b planet. Naming: the first is Gliese 3929b, the second is Gliese 3929c, and so on. A represents the star body, match the star gold and carbon 9 carried by the fleet, and make all kinds of war resources with all last strength. The so-called war resources, in addition to weapons and ammunition, are all kinds of warships after 2 consecutive wars. Coupled with the tail cut-off plan, the strength of the human fleet has shrunk seriously. In order to prevent unexpected situations on the way, expanding the fleet is already an urgent task point. But Lu Yongchang frowned again. Carbon 9 is a small matter. Although Gliese 3929c is very barren, some carbon can still be obtained. The focus is star gold. There is no ice giant in Gliese 3929, which directly cuts off Lu Yongchang's idea of mining star gold. Of course, he also notes that not all ice giants have star gold resources. Therefore, as early as when the Dyson Cloud device was built, the Human Union Academy of Sciences spent a lot of resources on artificial star gold technology. At present, this technology has been completely mature. But raw materials have become a big problem. Without raw materials, everything is empty talk. Gliese 3929. This star system is too barren. So barren that Lu Yongchang only felt a tingling sensation on his scalp. There must be a star system with relatively abundant supplies nearby, but the primary target of the Human Union fleet is still the small black hole. The sooner they reach the black hole, the sooner they can master the curvature technology and become a level 5 civilization. For this little resource, it is obviously not worth spending hundreds of years in desperation on. Lu Yongchang could only adjust his instructions with a painful face. Reduce the amount of war resource preparation by half. We need to keep some supplies for the war that may happen at any time. Received. The manufacturing plan has been changed. Zero did not understand Lu Yongchang's expression at this time. As always, it faithfully executed the instructions from the creator. The third priority mission is to have the man to go to Gliese 3929d to collect helium-3 and hydrogen. LV Yongchang raised his hands and rubbed his face vigorously, then exhaled a breath of turbid air and spoke again. 0. Estimate the time required for all tasks, with almost no waiting. Zero's response sounded again. It is estimated that it will take 47.69 years to complete all projects. Nearly 50 years. LV Yongchang murmured to himself. It is acceptable. By the way, remember to release the probe and create a warning zone in the surrounding area of the star system. The experience after leaving the Earth made LV Yongchang, and even the entire human civilization, a frightened bird. The human fleet, fearing that it would suffer another unprovoked disaster, would release a large number of probes even during the voyage, to create a large enough warning circle around the fleet. The mission has been completed, and the early warning probe has been successfully released. Looking at the picture of probes coming out of the Golden Crow battleship in the holographic projection. LV Yongchang nodded with satisfaction and then controlled his body to float towards the hibernation cabin. After completing all production and construction tasks, control the fleet to the black hole area. As he entered the hibernation chamber, he said in a serious tone, "No matter what happens, the distance between the fleet and the black hole must be kept outside the warning value received." The hatch of the hibernation chamber slowly closed, and the pale yellow deep sea liquid filled the interior of the hibernation chamber again. LV Yongchang, who was injected with hibernation hormone, slowly closed his eyes with endless curiosity about black holes. The lights in the room gradually dimmed until they went out. The flagship, Earth, fell into silence again. But the fleet became active. Under Zero's instructions, a large number of engineering ships carried the corresponding materials and headed towards the preset area. The desolate Gliese 3929 star system became lively for the first time after billions of years of silence. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 587 Black Hole. Since the human fleet arrived at the Gliese 3929 star system, this star system, that had stagnated for countless years, finally showed some changes. The Dyson cloud system near the main star, the planetary mineral mining equipment near the planet Gliese 3929b, and the warning detectors scattered around the star system. A large number of mechanical equipment created an extremely prosperous illusion for this desolate star system. The reason why it is called an illusion is naturally because such a prosperous scene will only last for 50 years. Earth calendar year 2670. An increasingly large fleet passed through the scorching hydrogen wall around the star system. A large amount of interhydrogen came into contact with hydrogen in the reaction chamber and annihilated, releasing extremely huge energy. This energy pushed the fleet to accelerate towards its destination. The camera turned back to the Gliese 3929 star system. After 50 years of destructive mining, Gliese 3929 now looked more and more desolate. Gliese 3929c, because of its low resource abundance, was lucky enough to escape the disaster, but there are countless bottomless pits on its surface. Gliese 3929d, as a huge gas giant, has hardly changed. As for Gliese 3929b, no, there is no Gliese 3929b now. An asteroid belt appeared in the orbit of Gliese 3929b. Just like the asteroid belt between Mars and Saturn. However, unlike the asteroid belt in the solar system, all asteroids in the Gliese 3929 asteroid belt are almost entirely composed of silicate, iron, nickel and other metals. All fell into the belly of the human fleet. Ding, ding, ding. With the gradually clear sound of the buzzer, LV Yongchang's consciousness gradually became clear. He coughed twice skillfully and coughed out the deep sea fluid remaining in his trachea. Zero. What happened? As soon as he regained consciousness, LV Yongchang straightened up suddenly and asked hurriedly, "Star Pirate Civilization, or, Professor, the fleet is about to arrive at the destination, according to the awakening procedure. The members of the Academy of Sciences and the Parliament are being awakened first." Hearing this, LV Yongchang could not help but be stunned in the hibernation cabin. After a few seconds, he came back to his senses and asked back in an extremely strange tone, "Zero, are you sure the fleet has arrived at the destination? Did you encounter any accidents during the voyage? Did you encounter any other civilizations during the 95 light-year journey?" Zero's electronic synthesized voice sounded, "Professor, I'm sure we have arrived at the target area. During the voyage, no traces of interstellar civilization were found." As he said, a small holographic image appeared in front of LV Yongchang. Navigation log. LV Yongchang did not speak, but just flipped through the navigation log in front of him with an incredible look on his face. According to the records in the log, the voyage was unexpectedly smooth. Except for a large-scale meteor shower, this long journey spanning 95 light-years encountered almost no obstacles. Unbelievable. LV Yongchang widened his eyes and muttered to himself, "How is it possible? Where Did they go? Where? Did those interstellar civilizations go? Insufficient data. No conclusion can be drawn. The electronic synthesized voice sounded at the side point. LV Yongchang waved his hand impatiently. Go away. I didn't ask you. 0. LV. Yongchang quickly got out of the hibernation cabin, while cleaning the deep sea fluid left on his body, while thinking carefully about the reasons there must be something wrong. When things are abnormal, point could it be? This area is the territory of a higher level civilization. Human civilization is like a fool, rushing directly into someone else's territory. Thinking of this possibility, he shuddered violently. No. That's not right. LV Yongchang's face became more and more solemn. He shook his head and rejected his previous conjecture. Even if there is an advanced civilization, this universe should not be so quiet. If human civilization really rushed into the territory of an advanced civilization, then they should have received something, whether it is a friendly message or an attack of unknown form. In short, it is impossible to be so quiet. Where are these interstellar civilizations hiding? LV. Yongchang's voice suddenly paused. Point hide. Why hide? Afraid. What are they afraid of? Advanced civilization. In a short moment, the clues were strung together in LV Yongchang's mind. Point. He raised his hand with a smile and patted his head gently. I understand. It turns out that we have to thank the sweeper civilization and the pastoral civilization. If it weren't for this war, our voyage would probably not be so smooth. That's right. Not long ago, the war between the sweeper civilization and the pastoral civilization, which affected dozens of light years, completely frightened the surrounding interstellar civilizations. Every civilization hid itself, fearing that it would be noticed by the two advanced civilizations. Only human civilization came out at this time. Maybe. Lu Yongchang's face became strange. These civilizations look at us like fools, right, Professor? Academician Fang Zhu is here. The electronic synthesized voice sounded softly. Point. As the voice fell, Fang Zhu's shout came from outside the door. Yongchang, Yongchang, are you awake? For some reason, Fang Zhu's shout was full of excitement. Point. He frowned, put on his electromagnetic boots, and walked towards the door. What's the noise? You just woke up from hibernation. You should go to the gravity room for recovery training as soon as possible. Next, we have a lot of scientific research tasks. You, Fang Zhu ignored LV Yongchang's serious expression. Point. He stretched out his hand excitedly and grabbed LV Yongchang's arm and pulled him to the porthole not far away. Look, black hole. This is a black hole. Outside the porthole, there is an extremely spectacular and brilliant picture. The mysterious and powerful black hole is clearly presented in front of LV Yongchang. Of course, a more accurate statement is the appearance of the black hole's event horizon. The real black hole still has not revealed its true appearance. Point. The extremely large accretion disk emits extremely strong light. Point. That is the interstellar matter pulled by the gravity of the black hole. They are like clouds, slowly moving around the black hole and gradually approaching the black hole under the influence of gravity until they are swallowed by the black hole. The central area is extremely dark. Point. This is the event horizon of the black hole. Even light cannot escape from it. Around the event horizon, there is a gravitational lens phenomenon that can be observed with the naked eye. Under the strong gravity, the starlight from afar is distorted. Lu Yongchang stared at the scene outside the porthole in a daze and swallowed hard. Point. The scolding at the tip of his tongue turned into a classic Chinese quintessence at this moment. Fuck. Chapter 588. A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. In the empty universe, a black hole is running quietly. Point. The huge, bright accretion disk slowly rotates around it, showing a strange beauty. Point. Further away, a small fleet was also moving in a circular motion around it. Point. Unfortunately, beautiful things are basically dangerous whether on Earth or in the universe. Point. It is no exception. Point. Compared with the black hole in the central region of the Milky Way, it is only a small black hole. Point. But beneath its beautiful appearance, extreme danger still lurks, not to mention the various dangerous radiations it releases. Just its extremely powerful gravity. Point. Once it gets too close to it, it will be captured by its strong gravity. Even a human fleet with an antimatter engine cannot easily escape. Point. As for the consequences, naturally, it slowly falls into the event horizon of this black hole, the area from which even light cannot successfully escape. and finally falls into the center of the black hole, the singularity point Earth. Lu Yongchang, who was standing by the porthole, frowned slightly. After experiencing the initial surprise, he quickly began to think about it. The images of black holes observed with the naked eye confirm many previous human conjectures about black holes, but there was still a little doubt slowly drifting through his mind. Normally, these small black holes do not have such huge accretion disks even. Most of the time, it does not have the structure of an accretion disk. This is why black holes are difficult to observe. On the one hand, black holes absorb starlight from far away. On the other hand, it is the gravitational lensing effect caused by their huge gravity. Observed from a distance, even the light behind the black hole can circle the black hole and travel to the observation source under the action of gravity. Simply put, we can observe starlight from the side and even the back of a black hole through it. Therefore, small black holes without accretion disks are difficult to detect using conventional observation methods. So why did this small black hole produce such a huge accretion disk? A conjecture came to Lu Yongchang's mind. Could it be that it just captured a star, and this huge accretion disk is the corpse of the star? The star was completely torn apart under the powerful gravity of the black hole. Black holes swallow stars. This is a once-in-a-lifetime observation opportunity. Maybe they can rely on observing this process to find the deeply hidden constant. Thinking of this, Lu Yongchang felt that his heart, which had just soothed a little, began to beat violently again. Let's go to laboratory number 1, Lu Yongchang said to Fang Zhu excitedly. This is a great observation opportunity. Fang Zhu was stunned, but soon he figured out the meaning. There was a flash of excitement in his eyes, and without saying any nonsense, he followed Lu Yongchang directly and hurried towards the laboratory. Shipborne laboratory number 1. A miniature holographic model of a black hole floats quietly in the center of the laboratory. 0. Send out all detectors and build an all-round observation network around the black hole. After entering the laboratory, Lu Yongchang's face became more serious. He raised his hand, gently dragged the holographic model, and reached out to click on several areas. Focus on these areas, Fang Zhu glanced at it with a look of surprise in his eyes. According to the current exploration data, in addition to the unique Hawking radiation of black holes, the black hole in front of us also emits a large amount of X-rays, gamma rays and visible light radiation. In addition to Hawking radiation, the rest of the radiation mainly exists in the accretion disk region of this black hole. The reason is also easy to explain. First, near the black hole, the attracted stars or planets will be completely torn apart by the strong gravity until they become atoms or subatomic particles. These particles will rotate around the black hole at high speed and form a disc-shaped structure. This is the origin of the black hole accretion disk. Secondly, due to the different speeds of the materials in the accretion disk, collisions and frictions between them are bound to occur. This process produces a large amount of light and heat. The extremely high temperature prompts the particles in it to transform into excited states, thereby releasing a large amount of rays. This is why black hole accretion disks are so bright. The areas highlighted by Lu Yongchang are basically the places with strong radiation in the accretion disk. Right, Lu Yongchang's voice sounded again. Modify some detectors, add enough radiation-proof shells to them, and then let them enter the accretion disk area for in-depth exploration, etc. Benlen's voice sounded at the door of laboratory number 1. Professor, have you figured out what communication method these detectors will use? Bilin's question made Lu Yongchang stunned. He responded subconsciously, of course it's a quantum long-distance communication device. Professor, have you ever considered the event form theory? Bilin asked extremely seriously. The so-called event form theory, simply put, means that the evolution of quantum states in strange space-time and flat space-time is different. Under the influence of gravity, entangled quantum pairs will suffer probabilistic losses. Hearing this, Lu Yongchang frowned instantly. Event form theory. Many experiments have been done before, and it is basically certain that quantum long-distance communication will not be affected by gravity. Professor, previous experiments were conducted around planets or stars. Bilin reminded softly, but this is a black hole. We are not sure whether the distortion of space-time caused by black holes will affect quantum long-distance communication. Lu Yongchang's expression gradually became serious. Bilin is right. Compared with black holes, The distortion of space-time caused by stars and planets is really inconspicuous. He tapped his knuckles lightly on the experimental table in front of him, hesitated for a moment, and then said, if this is the case, we may have to return to primitive electromagnetic wave communication. In this way, the efficiency of information transmission will drop to another level. Yongchang looked at the holographic projection helplessly. 0. Add electromagnetic wave communication modules to those detectors. Receive. There is another problem. Hebelin continued. The problem of time flow rate around the black hole. The closer the detector is to the black hole, the slower its time flows under the influence of gravity. Whether it is electromagnetic wave communication or quantum long-distance communication, there is no way to avoid this problem. A detector delivers information in 1 second, but it may take us decades or even centuries to receive it in its entirety. The look of helplessness in Yongchang's eyes became even heavier. I have also considered this issue. Currently, we can only spend a lot of time completing this observation experiment. Chapter 589 The Lost Star. As researchers arrived at the number 1 laboratory one after another, more and more parts and functions were added to the detector. Fortunately, all detectors are modular in design, and adding or removing functions does not take too much time. 3 days later, when the black hole observation network was successfully built, the first batch of black hole detectors left the manufacturing platform built by several engineering ships, driving the antimatter engine, and flying straight towards the extremely bright accretion disk point. When the black hole observation network was started, a large amount of data rushed into the central computer located in the Earth like a flood point. Even though the optical quantum supercomputing center has been upgraded several times, it also had a brief freeze in the face of such a huge amount of observation data. Fortunately, humans have 0. It saves countless data processing time for human civilization. In the laboratory, Yongchang was carefully checking the process detection data in the holographic projection, trying to find what he wanted from these complicated data. Professor, the 9PL67 detector has found an abnormal phenomenon. The electronic synthesized sound interrupted his thoughts. Yongchang still stared at the holographic image in front of him, and nodded nonchalantly. As he moved, a holographic projection appeared beside him. The next moment, he reluctantly withdrew his gaze from the data, and turned his head to look at the picture beside him. His eyes lit up slightly, and he uttered a light "I didn't expect that there is a planet in this place." The laboratory was very quiet, and Yongchang's mumbling was clearly heard by the people around him. What planet? Fuck. For a moment, the quiet laboratory became lively in an instant. A group of scientists put down their work like children who saw a lollipop, and quickly came to Yongchang, raising their necks and looking at the holographic image beside him with curiosity. A planet with several rings of stars is slowly orbiting the black hole outside the black hole accretion disk. Under the light of the black hole accretion disk, these rings are obviously light purple pink. This fantastic picture did not attract the attention of the scientists. Everyone's eyes were focused on the planet with light white clouds on its surface. The yellow-green continent and the blue waters. The laboratory fell into a brief silence. But then, the discussion became more and more heated. Fuck, this TM is actually a habitable planet. It actually has liquid water and vegetation on it. Land immediately. I want to see what the creatures living around the black hole look like. Perhaps because of being too surprised, a series of national quintessences suddenly sounded in the laboratory. It's no wonder that these scientists couldn't hold their breath. Even Yongchang opened his mouth slightly, and he couldn't believe what he saw. 0. Send some probes alone to try to land on this planet. Yongchang suppressed his excitement and gave an order to 0. Received. Looking at the planet in the holographic projection, Yongchang's heart suddenly moved. It seems that there is no need to look for other evidence. This black hole is indeed devouring a star, and this planet should be a member of the star system. He murmured to himself, this planet is really lucky it didn't fall into the accretion disk of the black hole. Lost star. Yongchang smiled and stretched out his hand to point at the holographic projection. Let's call it the lost star. It will take a long time for the detector to reach the lost star. Yongchang and others naturally would not waste time waiting. After sighing, everyone once again put their attention back on the data sent back by the Ring Black Hole Observation Network. Professor, the first batch of black hole detectors are about to enter the accretion disk. The electronic synthesized sound sounded again, pulling everyone's attention back again. Point in the huge holographic projection. Real-time images from the black hole detector quickly appeared. Points different from the images sent back by ordinary detectors. The images sent back by these black hole detectors seemed a bit stuck. Mo. Xiang. Report the working status of the super distant communication device. LV. Yongchang immediately asked Mo Xiang, who was not far away. This is an additional experiment in the process of exploring black holes. Re-verify the so-called event form theory. Although the quantum entanglement effect will not be affected by the gravitational field of stars and planets, the super strong gravitational field of black holes is the real test for quantum communication. After all, the curvature engine will also create an extremely strong gravitational field. Once it is confirmed that quantum communication will be affected by the strong gravitational field, the research and development of new communication technology will need to be put on the agenda. Professor, the super distant communication device is in normal condition. All photon entanglement is in normal condition. Mo Xiang's voice came from a distance. LV Yongchang nodded thoughtfully. At present, the event form theory has not been confirmed. Maybe the gravitational field is not strong enough. He Billen on the side added in a low voice. According to my calculations, entangled quantum pairs will be lost within the event horizon of the black hole. Event horizon. LV Yongchang frowned slightly. In this case, we can't study the inside of the black hole. Speaking of this, LV Yongchang changed the subject. However, compared with the event form theory, I think what we should pay more attention to is the time deceleration effect. In order to determine the change in the speed of time around the black hole, one of the black hole detectors is equipped with a precise cesium atomic clock, which sends a confirmation message to the fleet every second. Under normal circumstances, the interval for the fleet using the long-distance communication device to receive information should also be 1 second. But now, the interval for receiving this confirmation message has reached 2 seconds. It seems that the increase is not much, but this is the edge of the black hole after all. If the detector continues to approach, the time deceleration phenomenon will become more and more obvious. 1 day on the ground, 1 year in the sky may become a reality. By then, the fleet will need 6 minutes to receive the data transmitted by the black hole detector in just 1 second. Even as the detector gradually approaches the event horizon of the black hole, the speed of time will slow down to an even more exaggerated degree. There is no doubt that this will bring great difficulty to data analysis. Lu Yongchang didn't pay much attention to the accretion disk material running fast in the stuck picture. His energy was mainly focused on the various boring data sent back by the detector. After observing for a long time, he frowned and shook his head. No, the gravitational field is not strong enough. 0. Control the detector and continue to approach the black hole. Chapter 590 Habitable Planet. Beep. A faint prompt sounded nearby. LV Yongchang retracted his gaze and turned to look at the holographic projection beside him. It was the information sent back by the probe sent to the lost star. The probe sent by the fleet had successfully entered the atmosphere of the lost star and was trying to land on this lucky planet. As for the basic data of the lost star, it had already been presented in the holographic projection. But LV Yongchang had been attracted by the black hole data and had not paid attention to the information sent back by the probe. But now, he looked at the data in front of him with surprise and excitement in his eyes. Mass 2.16 meters. Surface gravity 1.49 g. Atmospheric composition 62.3% nitrogen, 31.9% oxygen. Land area 67.8%. Ocean area 32.3%. This is a habitable planet. This was the first thought that came to LV Yongchang's mind. If the habitability of Dawn Star is 80%, then the habitability of this lost star may reach 90% or even higher. It is so lucky. This is the second thought that came to LV Yongchang's mind. At present, its distance from the black hole is extremely perfect. The Light and heat generated by the friction of matter and the accretion disk provide it with just the right amount of energy. With the help of high-definition cameras, LV Yongchang and others also saw the appearance of the surface of the lost star forest, extremely dense forest, under the lens. Except for the ocean area, almost all land is covered with lush forests. The green color of most land areas appears very uniform. Except for one place, the North Pole of the lost star. Compared with other areas, the green color of the North Pole area appears particularly dense. At the same time, the North Pole area is also closer to the black hole accretion disk. It was this picture that caused a hint of doubt in LV Yongchang's eyes. This is near the black hole, while the accretion disk provides light and heat for the lost star. It also releases extremely powerful radiation. LV Yongchang glanced at the data sent back by the Black Hole Exploration Network next to him, and his eyes showed some understanding, but then he was more confused. The lost star and the accretion disk maintain the same angular velocity and maintain a good distance from the accretion disk, so it has always been in an area with weak radiation. This may create a more suitable environment for life. But weak is relative. This is a black hole. This dose of radiation is fatal to ordinary life. I don't know how the life on this planet survived. LV Yongchang shook his head in confusion and asked in a low voice. Zero. Have you found any electromagnetic wave signals? This is also what he has been worried about. Since there are such lush plants on this planet, there is a great possibility that other life exists, and even advanced civilizations may be born. No abnormal electromagnetic wave signals have been found so far. This planet is very quiet. Zero's report did not reassure LV Yongchang, but instead cast an inexplicable haze on his heart. Quiet. Sometimes, quietness is the biggest problem. 31.9%. Oxygen content. Mao Zedong's deliberately suppressed exclamation came from the side. So high, considering that its surface gravity is only 1.5 grams. The size of the creatures on it may not be small. Mao Zedong's words reminded LV Yongchang, who was immersed in various data. He instantly thought of the large creature born from Proxima b. The oxygen content of Proxima b is far lower than that of this lost star, but such a huge creature was still born. On Earth, not to mention the ancient dinosaur period, just talking about modern times, the oxygen content is only 21%. And there are supersized giant creatures like blue whales in the ocean. What kind of life will appear on this planet with not too high gravity and such abundant oxygen? LV Yongchang shuddered slightly. Zero. Terminate the landing program. Without any hesitation, he shouted directly. The probe keeps hovering and explores the surface conditions of the entire planet from high altitude. Received. Lost star. The dense atmosphere is filled with humid air. A huge arthropod raised its head with difficulty and looked at the sky with light clouds floating. An extremely large disc-shaped object covered the entire sky. It vaguely remembered that the sky was not like this before. At that time, there was only a round ball of light in the sky. I don't know when the ball of light disappeared and it was replaced by this dazzling disc-shaped object. It didn't know what happened, but it knew that the disc-shaped object was still glowing and hot, and it didn't bring much change to its life. Even this disc-shaped object could bring it a more comfortable sunbath. It stared at the glowing disc in the sky in a daze, and subconsciously moved its mouth pits full of tiny sharp teeth. It thought of a food it had eaten before, which looked very similar to the disc in the sky. The intoxicating taste slowly spread in its mind. Its brain capacity was not large, and being able to remember these things was already the limit. Just as it was about to lower its head to look for this delicious food again, something strange happened. It stared blankly at the countless flaming shooting stars passing through the sky, trying to understand the nature of these shooting stars with its small brain capacity. Suddenly, these shooting stars emitted a dazzling light. It subconsciously squinted its 6 pairs of small eyes, but the next moment, it felt the comfort coming from its body, as if it had taken a sunbath, and hummed softly. Rustle. A slight trembling sound came from the side. The intoxication in its eyes dissipated instantly, and the fear from the depths of its genes filled its brain. It didn't care about observing the scene in the sky, nor did it care about the comfort brought to it by those small glowing objects. It moved its hundreds of thin legs and ran away. When the arthropod went away, the tall bushes behind it trembled slightly twice. A tree root that had been raised high at some point slowly fell to the ground. Then, an obscure wave spread from the ground to the surroundings. A few seconds later, a scream came from a distance. The arthropod tried to open its 6 pairs of gradually dimming eyes and looked at the fireballs hovering in the sky. Behind the fireballs was an extremely bright disk that covered the entire sky. The disk slowly rotated, as if foreshadowing something. The gradually losing activity of the brain seemed to have sensed something, driving it to make a sound full of fear, but the next moment, the sound suddenly disappeared. Accompanied by a dense rustling sound, its huge body gradually disappeared in the lush forest. The forest once again returned to silence. Chapter 591 Giant Tree. The order issued by Yongchang was transmitted to the detector through a long-distance communication device. With almost no delay, all detectors quickly completed attitude adjustments and lit up the antimatter engines at the tail at the same time. Boom. The huge energy changes the detector's original falling motion state at a speed visible to the naked eye. At the same time, the gamma rays emitted by the antimatter engine dispersed in all directions like a storm. As the attitude of the detector gradually stabilizes, the power of the antimatter engine also gradually decreases under Zero's control. The detectors were carved from the same mold, hovering at the same height in the dense atmosphere. Then, the detectors adjusted their posture again and flew in all directions of the planet. The real-time images from the detector are presented to the scientists with extremely clear clarity. There are only forests on this planet. An older generation academician of the Academy of Sciences from the Earth Age complained in a low voice. This greening is really good. Yongchang laughed dumbly. Although it was funny, there was also some confusion in his eyes. Not only him, but also the academicians majoring in biology in the laboratory had confusion written all over their faces. This is not normal. Mao Zengzi frowned and muttered to himself, "It's so abnormal. With so many forests, is the soil fertility on this planet so high, and the forest density in every place is almost exactly the same. How is this possible?" Mao Zengzi shook his head repeatedly. "I don't understand. I really don't understand this time." Yongchang's eyes moved, and he asked in a deep voice, "Zero, has the surface scanning and modeling work been completed? Relevant data is being processed. Please wait." Electronic synthesized sound sounded quickly. After a few seconds of waiting, a brand new projection appeared in front of everyone. The 3D model glows with blue light, and thick trees grow on the undulating ground. At first glance, there seems to be no problem. Wait. Mao Zengzi suddenly widened his eyes and said with a look of horror, "Professor, look at the numbers on the coordinate axis next to it." Yongchang was stunned and looked at the coordinate axis on the side of the 3D model with some confusion. His reaction was even more intense than that of Mao Zengzi. "Fuck." Yongchang's voice trembled slightly. "How on earth do these trees grow on the coordinate axis?" The number 100 glows with a bright white light. 100 meters. This is the average height of these trees compared with the Earth. The size of these trees has increased several times. "Professor, the detector detected an abnormality. This time, before Yongchang could speak, a holographic image automatically appeared next to him. In the picture is an extremely large tree, like a pillar connecting the ground and the sky, standing quietly on the surface of the planet. The camera zooms in quickly. The texture on the tree trunk gradually becomes clearer. The deep ravines reveal to outsiders the vicissitudes of life it has experienced. The tree canopy blocks the sun, blocking light from the black hole's accretion disk. Long branches seem to be unable to bear the planet's gravity and hang down from the canopy of the trees. At its feet is a lush forest. From a distance, these forests look like grass. At the foot of this big tree, a single tree forms a forest. Yongchang's breathing was a little rapid. He suddenly realized that the extremely green Arctic area he saw in the universe at that time was probably caused by this terrifying giant tree. Yongchang swallowed slightly and asked in a low voice, "How big is this tree?" According to the data returned by the detector, the highest point is 12,037 meters. Even though everyone was mentally prepared when they heard this number, there was still a gasp in the laboratory. "Fuck, *NLU. Yongchang is no exception. His pupils dilated slightly, and he looked at the holographic image in front of him with disbelief. 12,000 meter tall trees. I originally thought that those woods with an average height of 100 meters were exaggerated enough, but I didn't expect that there was a big boss with a height of 12,000 meters. He couldn't help but cursed in his heart. This TND, a tree is actually bigger than the earth. How on earth does this grow? Mao Zheng's his face turned slightly red, and he complained loudly, no matter how high the oxygen concentration is, it is impossible for such a monster to appear. After a brief shock, Lu Yongchang took a deep breath, calmed down a little, and turned his attention to the data returned by the detector. It doesn't matter if you don't look at it, you will find the problem once you look at it. What about the gamma rays and X-rays produced by the black hole? Where do those radiations go? Lu Yongchang subconsciously turned his head to look at the data returned by the other detectors. No problem. The planet's atmosphere is filled with high intensity radiation from all kinds of black holes, except around giant trees. Mao Zhengxi also discovered this anomaly. His eyes stayed on the huge crown of the giant tree, and he raised his hand thoughtfully and touched his chin. Professor, let these detectors leave the tree canopy coverage area and take a look. Mao Zhengxi said softly. LV Yongchang's eyes were filled with excitement and confusion, and he gently waved his hand to signal 0. With the help of the antimatter engine, the detector quickly left the canopy area of the giant tree. A large dose of radiation has been detected. An electronic synthesized voice sounded. Sure enough, LV Yongchang murmured excitedly. Professor, it's basically certain. Mao Zhengxi said loudly with some excitement and horror. This giant tree can absorb gamma rays and X-rays and use them as energy for its own growth. Now, everything makes sense. No wonder this planet is in such a bad position. There is still life on it. It feels like the area around this black hole is a paradise for these trees. Life is really amazing. Mao Zhengxi looked at the holographic projection in front of him and exclaimed repeatedly. Unlike Mao Zhengxi, LV Yongchang's first thought was the role these trees can play. Such efficient absorption of large doses of radiation. These trees are simply excellent materials for building a starship's radiation protection layer. The scene of the war between advanced civilizations still lingers in LV Yongchang's mind. He can fully imagine the extremely large doses of high-energy radiation diffused in the war zone without having to experience it himself. Therefore, the question of how to increase the radiation protection performance of the starship has always been lingering in his mind. Now, the plan has been revealed. He gave 0 an order with some excitement. 0, land, immediately. Chapter 592, Strange Planet. The order was given. Ling meticulously carried out the orders from Lu Yongchang. For safety reasons, the detectors scattered throughout the Forsaken Star drive the antimatter engines and focus on several preset landing sites. The sky of Forgotten Star, which had been calm for who knows how many years, appeared at this moment with countless dazzling rainbows. The light from the black hole's accretion disk reflects the chaotic and orderly rainbow in the sky. The high energy gamma rays produced when the antimatter engine is working are like a tide, rushing to every corner of the Forgotten Star in waves under the impact of these high energy gamma rays. This forest covered planet has undergone some extremely small and unknown changes. Even a detector equipped with countless advanced observation equipment could not detect this small change during high speed flight. As time passed, the originally messy leaves slowly adjusted their orientation. They pointed the front of the leaves towards the rainbows in the sky. It's as if the trees are staring at the tracks left by the detectors. This strange scene did not last long. As the rainbow in the sky slowly faded away, the leaves of these trees returned to their original orientation. The equatorial region of the Forsaken Star above the A1 landing site, 20,000 meters in the air. Dozens of detectors adjusted their postures and then reduced the operating power of their antimatter engines as the light from the nozzle gradually dimmed. The heights of these dozens of detectors also gradually decreased. The land area of the Forgotten Star is covered by dense forests, which makes the landing of the probe somewhat difficult. At the beginning, Lu Yongchang prepared to adopt a violent landing method, that is, using laser weapons and high-power bombs to clear a safe landing area. However, this proposal was strongly opposed by Mao Zhengxi. As an academician of biology, He couldn't bear to see such a magical ecosystem destroyed. Point of course, the most important reason is that humans currently do not know the growth cycle and cultivation methods of these trees. If its growth cycle is too long, or if its cultivation is too difficult, the forest on the Forgotten Star will basically become a non-renewable resource point. Even though the number of trees on this planet is extremely large, once it is determined that it has good radiation resistance properties, the needs of the human fleet are not vegetarian. Therefore, in order to preserve these precious resources as much as possible, the probe gave up its original landing plan and instead chose to land on the Forgotten Star through the gaps between the tree canopies observed from a high altitude. The forest on the surface of the Forsaken Star is extremely lush and dense. But in front of us, there are still many gaps between the crowns of each big tree, enough to accommodate small detectors in the Earth laboratory. Everyone looked curiously at the images sent back by the detector, trying to see the true appearance of this lost star for the first time. As for the data returned by the black hole detector, let the probe fly for a while longer. They also need a lot of time to cross the huge accretion disk and reach the area where the distortion of space-time is high enough. The detector gradually descended, and the scenery inside the forest came into view. Mao Zengzi, who was originally full of excitement, frowned and let out a light sigh. Something feels wrong. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something, stretched out his hand, and dragged the 3D model aside, marking several areas on it. 0. Help me calculate the distance between these tree crowns. 4. 0. This task is extremely simple. As soon as he finished speaking, detailed data appeared in front of Mao Zengzi. Looking at the numbers on the holographic model, the remaining excitement in his eyes dissipated instantly. Professor, he turned his head and looked at Lu Yongchang beside him. There is something wrong with this forest. No, I'm afraid it's not this forest. It's the whole planet. You mean? Lu Yongchang looked thoughtfully at the statistics that kept beating in front of him. This forest may be artificially planted. Looking at the gradually increasing data samples, he changed his words. No, the forests on this entire planet are artificially planted. Yes. Mao Zengzi nodded with some confusion. It sounds a bit incredible. The trees range in size from small to large, and the size of their crowns varies. Normally, it should be easy to see the overlap between tree crowns, but so far, the distance between all tree crowns is basically similar. Mao Zengzi showed a hint of fear in his eyes. Moreover, on this planet, except for the Arctic region, the vegetation density of all forests is basically the same. One more thing, Professor, there is only this kind of tree on this planet. How could such a situation happen without human intervention? Lu Yongchang's eyes were a little more solemn than before. He was silent for a while, without giving any conclusion, but said in a deep voice, continue to log in. No matter what, we can only find out the truth behind it by landing on this planet. If it were the work of other advanced civilizations, Lu Yongchang did not continue. But everyone present understood the meaning of his words, and everyone's expressions became a little gloomy. Just escaped from the tiger's mouth and turned around and entered the wolf's den again. While everyone was discussing, the probe successfully passed through the gap between the treetops and crossed the last distance, stepping on the surface of the lost star. Logically speaking, with a surface gravity of nearly 1.5 g. Plus these 100-meter high behemoths, the surface soil should be quite solid, but the actual situation is completely opposite to Lu Yongchang's imagination. The soil is very soft. According to the data sent back by the sensor, the softness of these soils far exceeded Lu Yongchang's expectations. It is even softer than the soil on Earth. It's like someone has been loosening the soil for it. Who could it be? Lu Yongchang shuddered slightly, shook his head to get rid of the thoughts in his mind, and then turned his attention to the holographic image in front of him. The light and shadows are sparse. The light from the black hole accretion disk shines directly on the soft reddish brown soil through the gap between the leaves and the treetops, forming patches of light spots of different sizes. There are a few fallen leaves left on the reddish brown soil. Although the number of leaves is small, the area is very large. 2 or 3 adult human men can lie on one leaf at the bottom of the tree trunk. Some fungi like mushrooms grow. The cap is wide and brightly colored. It is like the accretion disk of a black hole. Coupled with the towering trees that are often hundreds of meters high, a fantastic picture is clearly presented in front of everyone. Under Zero's control, the hatch on the side of a detector slowly opened. Several small robots quickly walked out of the hatch and walked towards the leaves with firm steps. Sampling. Storage. The robot that completed the leaf sampling quickly stood up and put the sample back into the detector. Chapter 593 Abnormal Vibration. Quiet. 2. Quiet. Mao Zengzi stared at the fantastic scene in the holographic projection, which looked like a scroll, and squeezed out a few words from his teeth. LV Yongchang also nodded solemnly. As academician Mao Zengzi said, "This forest is too quiet, except for the sound of the wind blowing the broad leaves. There is almost no other sound. Many times, silence is the biggest anomaly. Is there no animal on this planet?" LV Yongchang muttered to himself in confusion. While everyone was confused, Zero was still carrying out the sampling task in an orderly manner. After the leaf sampling work was completed, it was the trunk sampling, soil sampling, and associated fungi sampling. Soil sampling is very simple. Under Zero's control, the robot quickly completed this task. The most difficult thing was the sampling of trees. The reason, naturally, the hardness of these trunks far exceeded the imagination of LV Yongchang and others, but it is understandable. Judging from their appearance, these 100-meter high trees belong to the same species as the 12,000-meter high tree. These tree trunks can support such a huge object under 1.5 g gravity, so their strength can be imagined. But all this became a lie after the robot replaced the drill bit with the same material as the starship shell. Under the impact of the star gold carbonine composite drill bit, a cylindrical sample that penetrated the cross-section of the tree was taken out. Professor, the detector detected some abnormal vibrations on the ground. As the electronic synthesized sound sounded, all the robots put down their scientific research equipment and revealed the small laser guns installed on the mechanical arms driven by the fusion battery. The muzzle flashed with a lavender light. The surrounding temperature also rose rapidly, and the calm air was slightly distorted. The vibration disappeared. But the robots still maintained their original movements, looking around vigilantly. 10 minutes later, no unknown creatures were found. Comprehensively determined the source of the vibration is a minor earthquake. The alert has been lifted, and the original sampling mission will continue. The lavender light gradually dissipated, and the small laser gun was retracted into the mechanical arm. Half an hour later, the sampling work at each landing point has been completed. The detector is ready to perform the return operation. Zero's report sounded in the laboratory. This should have been a phased progress, but there was no smile on Liu Yongchang's face. He looked at the holographic image in front of him with great solemnity, with a look of doubt in his eyes. "What do you think of the vibration just now?" Beside him, Mao Zengzi stared at the data and the projection and sighed deeply. At almost the same time, all surface detectors detected this slight vibration. It looks like an earthquake, but it's not the frequency of seismic waves. This is very strange. Mao Zengzi turned his head, looked at LV Yongchang's eyes seriously, and repeated again, "It's really strange." LV Yongchang was silent for a moment, and said softly, "You also think this is not an earthquake?" Mao Zengzi nodded silently. What a coincidence. At that time, almost all robots were performing tree trunk sampling work. LV Yongchang stared at the robots entering the detector, in turn in the picture, thinking carefully about the measures to be taken next. In his mind, the possibility that this planet was the work of an advanced civilization has been promoted to the first place. But after all, there is no definite evidence. Today's human civilization needs all resources that can promote development. We must never give up these precious resources because of some insufficient evidence. All probes loaded with samples are returning. After pondering for a long time, LV Yongchang finally spoke again. The rest of the probes will enter the near-Earth orbit of the lost star and conduct real-time observations of the surface of the lost star. In addition, implement the second batch of awakening plans. Send some experienced planetary explorers for the next landing exploration mission. Received. At The same time as the electronic synthesized sound rang, Mao Zedong's voice also rang. "Professor, isn't this too risky? There are still a lot of mysteries on the lost star that have not been solved. If you rashly send planetary explorers before LV Yongchang could speak, Fang Zhu on the other side had already interrupted Mao Zedong's voice. "That's why we need to send planetary explorers. You've also seen the surface environment of the lost star. Complex forest landforms, extremely soft soil. In such an environment, zero-sum robot can only play an auxiliary exploration role. If you want to truly unveil the veil of the lost star, sending explorers to land and explore is an indispensable link." The probe left point only a part of the probe remained in the near-Earth orbit of the lost star, quietly gazing at the forest below point, but under the cover of the tree canopy, the exploration effect was not very good. The soft soil trembled slightly. A thick tree root slowly emerged from the ground and stretched to the area where the probe landed. It lay on the somewhat charred surface as much as possible, as if there was honey on it. Time passed slowly. As the lost star rotated, night came. The brilliant accretion discovering the entire sky slowly disappeared at the end of the horizon. Since the last great change in the world, the nights have become increasingly cold. The tree roots lying on the charred surface twitched slightly, as if they sensed the coldness around them, and retracted into the soft soil again. At night, this quiet forest finally became lively. One after another, huge arthropods crawled out of the dense tree canopy, dragging their numerous ventral feet and crawling toward the surface along the thick tree trunks. They crawled very fast, and in a few seconds they climbed down the 100-meter high tree trunks. After reaching the ground, they did not hesitate at all and quickly crawled to the bottom of the tree trunk. There was the food they urgently needed. These foods, which looked like the background plate in the sky, could only be safely enjoyed at night. After eating, several of the arthropods moved their ventral feet and twisted their bodies to a slightly raised mound. The soil of this mound was particularly soft, as if it had just been turned over by something. They put their heads together and communicated with each other using their tentacles. "It's dead. Yes, it's dead. What a pity. I've told it so many times that it can't go down to find food during the day. That's the devil's bait, but it just won't listen. Oh, what a pity." After the communication, the arthropods turned around and crawled away. While the night was still thick, they needed to find food as much as possible. As for their regret just now, after taking 10 steps, they completely forgot about it. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 594 Unknown Creatures. It was dark. A huge arthropod was swinging its hundreds of ventral legs quickly, twisting its body covered with a hard exoskeleton, and flexibly moving through the lush forest. Occasionally, it would slow down its pace a little, lower its head, and nibble a few bites of food at the roots of the tree trunks beside it. Even though the food in this area was very rich, it still had no intention of stopping. Suddenly, for the first time, it stopped its somewhat hurried steps and raised its head to look forward. A light breeze blew, bringing a warm and slightly damp breath. It pressed its abdomen against the soft ground and felt it carefully. A slight vibration came from the front, as if foreshadowing something. After confirming the specific direction, it swung its ventral legs again and walked forward quickly. A few seconds later, the view suddenly opened up. The lush forest came to an abrupt end here. In front of it was an ocean that could not be seen at a glance. As it moved forward, its body spontaneously underwent some changes. The color of its body changed, becoming very similar to the color of the beach. For it, this was like an instinct, and it hardly took any energy. It ran quickly to the beach, lowered its head, and drank a few sips of slightly warm fresh water. Then, it raised its head and looked around. There were many of its kind staying on the coast. They gathered in groups of 3 or 2. communicating with each other with the help of tentacles. It did not join them, but silently raised its head and cast its eyes to the sky. The starry sky was bright. Some doubts appeared in its small brain. In some vague memories, there seemed to be two large and bright balls in the starry sky at night. Although the brightness was not as good as the light ball in the daytime, it could still dispel the darkness of the night. But now, these two balls are gone. Just like the light ball in the daytime, they disappeared suddenly. Where did they go? What are those small spots of light in the night sky? Questions arose in its mind, filling its underdeveloped brain. After a long time, it felt a little tired in the neck. After keeping the same posture, it shook its head and lowered its head to drink a mouthful of seawater again. The warm seawater slowly fell down its esophagus, washing away the doubts in its heart. It didn't know the answers to these messy questions, nor could it figure out the truth behind them. But it knew that, since the two spheres disappeared, and the daytime sky was occupied by the huge disk, sunbathing became warmer and more pleasant, and the forest became much safer. The most important point is that it sees more and more of its kind every night. This is a good thing. The memory hidden in its genes tells it that every time such a situation occurs, their population will have a stable reproduction cycle of a few decades or 100 years. The next will be a peaceful era. Thinking of this, its mood suddenly became happy. It quickly swung its ventral foot and ran towards the groups of its kind in the distance. Human fleet. Most of the probes loaded with samples have returned to the fleet. Under various perfect isolation measures, Zero controlled the robot to carefully send various samples into a special biological laboratory. In order to ensure the biological activity of the samples, the biological laboratory has been temporarily transformed into an atmospheric environment similar to the Lost Star. A dedicated experimental robot was busy preparing for the experiment in the biological laboratory. Thanks to the breakthrough in robot technology, biologists no longer have to take huge risks to contact alien biological samples. Of course, this is also limited. Once a special situation that the robot cannot handle is encountered, it is likely that biologists will still need to go into battle in person. Professor, the detector has discovered unidentified creatures in the coastline area of the Lost Star. The reminder sounded in a flat tone, but it caused an extremely unpleasant response. Hiss. Where are the unidentified creatures? Is it humanoid? I wonder if they have wisdom. For a while, the laboratory was filled with various discussions. Mao Zengzi was particularly excited. With a red glove excitement on his face, he quickly walked through the crowd and squeezed to LV Yongchang's side. The next moment, the holographic image showed the images taken by the probe. Although there was almost no light source on the surface of the planet and only dim starlight in the sky, the images sent back by the probe were still as bright as daylight. But LV Yongchang looked at the empty coastline and frowned slightly. Zero, where are the unknown creatures? He asked Zero with some doubt. In his opinion, there were no abnormal objects near the coastline except for the extremely narrow beach. On the beach, for some reason, there were many strange patterns that looked like traces left by crawling creatures. Not only LV Yongchang, but other scientists also showed a hint of confusion in their eyes. Professor, it's a protective color. As soon as the voice fell, dense red circles appeared in the holographic projection. LV Yongchang was slightly stunned and subconsciously took a step forward, closing the distance between him and the holographic projection and observing more carefully. After several minutes of observation, he noticed the strangeness of these red circles. Although the red circle area is very similar to the surrounding beach, it still reveals some flaws when moving. Those slowly extending lines are the best proof. Hiss. LV Yongchang glanced at the number of red circles, took a breath, stepped back half a step and said, so many. This beach is almost full, right? He muttered to himself. Where did they come from? According to the crawling tracks and observation records, all creatures appeared from the forest. Zero quickly gave the answer and marked the crawling tracks in the holographic projection. Mao Zengzi frowned and uttered a soft TSK. That's not right. In that case, why didn't the detector find these creatures during the day? The protective color suitable for the beach should be very conspicuous in the forest. Academician. Mao, please wait. The Electronic synthesized sounded, and the image in the holographic projection began to accelerate and reverse point soon. The strange lines on the beach disappeared one by one. Finally, the beach returned to its appearance smoothed by the sea. Time began to flow normally. Seeing the first line suddenly appear at the junction of the beach and the forest, Yongchang's eyes suddenly flashed with a look of realization. Chameleon, he said with relief. These creatures can change their protective color at any time according to the surrounding environment. No wonder the detector can't find them during the day. After a moment of silence, Yongchang spoke again. Can you simulate their basic form? Basic information is insufficient, and the simulated form may be quite different from the real object. As a line of reminder text emerged, a slightly strange creature began to slowly emerge in the holographic projection on the side. Chapter 595 Woodlice? Not long after the simulation was completed, this Yongchang's mouth twitched slightly. Woodlouse. He had reason to believe that Zero had directly put on the model of the woodlouse. This round body, coupled with the tiny gastropods on the abdomen, Yongchang couldn't help but recall his childhood memories. These small insects, commonly known as watermelon worms, often live in moist flower beds. With a flick of the finger, it will shrink into a round ball. This was his toy in his childhood. Professor, the current high altitude exploration data can only confirm that it is an arthropod similar to a woodlouse. The specific appearance requires more data support to simulate. Listening to Zero's defense, Yongchang raised his hand to his forehead with a headache. This, you can tell at a glance that it's impossible. How can alien creatures look the same as Earth creatures? As soon as he finished complaining in his heart, Yongchang thought of the appearance of the Botha civilization. The body that resembled a stick insect clearly appeared in his mind. It seems there is a certain possibility, Yongchang asked with a strange look on his face. The appearance is uncertain. What about the size? What are the size data of these, woodlice-like creatures? The approximate data was marked one by one in the holographic model. 5 meters long. Yongchang suddenly widened his eyes. This 5 meters long. Even if it is really a watermelon worm, its threat to humans will not be low. I never thought that the insects on this lost star could grow to such a size. It seems that the plan to land and explore the lost star needs to be modified. Just as Yongchang was thinking about the modifications to the exploration plan, Mao Zengzi looked at the holographic model thoughtfully and muttered to himself, strange. What kind of creatures did they evolve such a perfect protective color mechanism to protect against? Mao Zengzi's words directly made the originally noisy laboratory return to silence. There are too many doubts about the lost star. Those huge trees that can absorb radiation energy, and those 5-meter long woodlice-like creatures. Mao Zengzi's words sounded the alarm for Yongchang. There may be an extremely powerful predator on the lost star. It can prey on 5-meter long woodlice-like creatures, so you can imagine its size and threat. The plan to land and explore the lost star can only be put aside temporarily, and the samples collected by the robot should be explored first. If they do not have a high utilization value, perhaps Yongchang will choose to give up exploring this lost star in the biological laboratory. According to the instructions, the scientific research type I robot calmly and orderly completed a series of basic exploration projects. First, the soil. Mao Zengzi is extremely concerned about the soil that grows such plants, but after some exploration, the results surprised him. This soil is extremely ordinary. Apart from being relatively fertile, relatively soft, and containing more oxygen and water, there is almost nothing to note. As for some trace element, except for a slightly different proportion, it is very similar to the soil on Earth. The only valuable discovery is that the scientific research type I robot detected a high intensity of radiation in these soils. However, no corresponding radioactive substances, such as radioactive minerals such as cobalt-60, were found in the soil. After thinking fruitlessly, Mao Zengzi and others could only turn their attention to the remaining samples. Leaf samples like tree trunks. These thick leaves are also very tough. Yongchang frowned as he watched the movements of the scientific research robot and the holographic projection. Something is wrong. What's wrong? Mao Zengzi, who was highly focused, turned around and asked, Professor, have you found any problems? Take a look. LV Yongchang thought for a while and called up a picture. This is the sample picture just taken on the lost star. After saying that, he pointed to the holographic image in front of him. This is now in the picture. The leaves and fungi in the laboratory were drooping on the laboratory table, and the surface luster was no longer as good as before. Mao Zhengxi's eyes moved slightly, and he noticed something unusual. Did they wilted? Isn't this too fast? Could it be a problem with the composition of the atmosphere? It shouldn't be. LV Yongchang shook his head without hesitation. The adaptation work of the biological laboratory environment has been completed. Now the composition of the atmosphere inside is basically the same as that of the lost star. He looked thoughtfully at the image of the lost star sent back by the high altitude detector. The only difference, it may be radiation. Asterisk 2 LV. Yongchang and Mao Zhengxi said in unison. 0. Prepare for the test. LV Yongchang gave the order without any hesitation. Create some radiation in the laboratory. A few minutes later, several large machines were transported into the biological laboratory point in the first test. In order to prevent accidents, under LV Yongchang's order, 0 simulated the radiation near the surface of the lost star as much as possible in terms of intensity and composition. Time passed slowly. After being given sufficient moisture, the plant samples bathed in radiation gradually regained their vitality on the forgotten star. This undoubtedly verified the original conjecture of Lu Yongchang and others that plants on this planet feed on radiation. Take a sample and increase the intensity of the radiation they receive. Lu Yongchang's eyes moved slightly, and he issued a new order again. The scientific research robot perfectly executed Lu Yongchang's orders. The radiation intensity gradually increases 10%, 20% when the radiation intensity increased by 100%. Mutations occurred. Professor Mao Zhengxi shouted excitedly. They are repairing themselves. Lu Yongchang stared blankly at the projected image and murmured, I saw it in the picture. Not only the leaves, but also the cut edge areas of fungi and bark samples are slowly growing at a speed visible to the naked eye. The growth only lasted a few minutes and quickly faded away. Insufficient nutrition, Mao Zhengxi said in a low voice. After all, it is a rootless root. Once the stored nutrients are used up, repair work will be impossible. Lu Yongchang's eyes flashed. But even so, this characteristic is unimaginable. If these barks are made into the radiation protection layer of a starship and given enough nutrients, even if the radiation protection layer is broken down under the influence of a large amount of radiation, they can even complete the repair work spontaneously. Lu Yongchang took a deep breath. Apart from anything else, based on this alone, this lost star must not be given up easily. P.S. Dear readers, please give me gifts and generate electricity for love. CAC Chapter 596 Fungi, Organs, Professor Zero's electronic synthesized voice sounded. The radiation intensity of all samples has been detected. The data has been sorted. After the words fell, a holographic chart slowly appeared in front of Lu Yongchang and Mao Zhengxi. Looking at the data in the chart, the doubts on the faces of Lu Yongchang and Mao Zhengxi gradually grew stronger. According to the detection of scientific research robots, the radiation contained in those white leaves is the weakest. Bark comes next. The trunk concentration is slightly higher. This was all expected by Lu Yongchang and others. They could even foresee that the radiation intensity at the roots of these giant trees might far exceed that of other areas, but what they didn't expect was that the fungus growing at the bottom of the giant tree was extremely radioactive. Its strength is hundreds of times that of the leaf area and dozens of times that of the trunk area. This is strange. Mao Zhengxi frowned and murmured to himself. With the obstruction of the tree canopy, these fungi should not be exposed to radiation, even if they can absorb the radiation in the trunk. Their radiation intensity cannot exceed the trunk area. Lu Yongchang didn't speak. He just stretched out his hand to hold his chin and stared at the brightly colored fungus with the huge cap and the holographic image. After thinking for a long time, he spoke. 0. Take samples and compare giant trees and fungi at the cellular level. Mao Zhengxi turned around and looked at Lu Yongchang in surprise. Professor, what are you? Lu Yongchang chuckled. I just have a guess. In the images returned by the detector at that time, these fungi were growing in the root area of the tree trunk. There is no trace of fungal growth in the surface soil. What did you think of, Mao? Zheng's eyes widened a bit, and he said with an incredulous look, "Are you suspecting that these fungi, no, these things that are similar to fungi, are part of the giant tree?" He looked at the radiation detection data, and murmured to himself, "So, these things may be the organs of giant trees that store nutrients. It's strange, how can any plant put its nutrient storage organs in such a place?" As he spoke, Mao Zedong smiled, and shook his head. "Isn't it easy to be eaten by other creatures?" There was no smile on Lu Yongchang's face. He nodded solemnly. "It is most likely an organ of a giant tree, but I'm afraid it won't be the organ where the giant tree stores nutrients." Huh? Mao Zedong looked at Lu Yongchang with some confusion. "What do you mean? When you look at its bright appearance, what do you think of?" Lu Yongchang stared directly at every move of the scientific research robot in the picture, and murmured in a low voice, "These giant trees, I'm afraid they are a little different from what we imagined." Mao Zedong's eyes were filled with deep doubts at first, but after a few seconds, the doubts in his eyes dissipated instantly, leaving only the spontaneous fear. "Professor, what do you mean?" Mao Zedong felt a chill coming from behind. He swallowed hard, and said with a hint of trembling in his voice, "Are these things that look like fungi the predatory organs of giant trees?" Plant predation, although rare, does occur even on Earth. Pitcher plants, Venus flytraps. These plants will prey on insects to provide themselves with nutrients. They have even evolved unique predatory organs for this purpose. Just like the giant tree on the Forsaken Star, but the volume of the two is not the same specification. Mao Zedong subconsciously took a step back, his face full of horror. "So, this planet is just a cage filled with countless baits." Lu Yongchang pursed his lips towards the holographic projection. "The results haven't come out yet. Maybe my guesses are all wrong. Maybe, Professor, the comparison work has been completed, and the similarity between the two is close to 99.9%. The laboratory once again returned to deathly silence. In the Earth office, Lu Yongchang was sitting behind his desk, subconsciously flexing his knuckles, and tapping the desk in front of him. Above the desk is a holographic image of a planet, forgotten star. He frowned and murmured softly, "The rewards are high, but so are the risks, not to mention those arthropods, just those giant trees that may have predatory tendencies, may cause great losses to the landing operation. Normally, he should be focusing on the black hole now. After completing a series of studies, use the curvature engine to travel to the habitable star system. This is the ideal path for human civilization. But thinking about that extremely grand war and the powerful radiation resistance of these giant trees, Lu Yongchang felt as if he had been scratched by a cat. "Professor, academician ZHU Ziwen is visiting." The electronic synthesized sound pulled Lu Yongchang out of the endless tangle. "ZHU Ziwen." Lu Yongchang's eyes lit up, as if he had thought of something, and he said excitedly, "Let him in, Professor. I'm sorry to bother you." The door opened, and ZHU Ziwen's voice came in from the door. Lu Yongchang raised his head, and stared at ZHU Ziwen, who strode into the office. Compared with before, ZHU Ziwen seemed much more mature, with a wise light shining in his eyes. Looking at this academician from the Proxima era, LV Yongchang couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Unconsciously, the Proxima generation can no longer be considered the new generation. "Don't bother, LV." Yongchang showed a gentle smile, raised his hand, and pointed to the seat in front of him. "Sit down. I guess you bring me good news." In front of LV Yongchang, ZHU Ziwen's serious expression gradually dissipated, and a slightly shy smile appeared on both sides of his cheeks. "Professor, I heard that you are going to organize planetary explorers to land on the lost star." LV Yongchang laughed dumbly, straightened up slightly, and said half jokingly, "Yes, what, you don't want to go to the lost star to take a look?" The shy smile on ZHU Ziwen's face gradually disappeared, and his expression became serious. "Yes, Professor." LV Yongchang, this one really made him unable to do it. He took a deep breath, calmed down his turbulent emotions, and after carefully choosing his words, he said. Ziwen, although you are not an academician in biology, but you should have heard some news. The lost star is very dangerous. ZHU. Ziwen smiled and nodded. Professor, of course I know. This is also the reason why I applied to go to the lost star. Seemingly noticing Lu Yongchang's somewhat surprised look, ZHU Ziwen explained again. Professor, the research and development of the second generation exoskeleton armor has been completed. Chapter 597 Second generation exoskeleton armor. LV Yongchang raised his eyebrows slightly. This news did not exceed his expectations after hearing the news of ZHU Ziwen's visit. He had this guess in his mind. Now that the guess has been verified, the smile on LV Yongchang's face has become even stronger. Oh, he said to ZHU Ziwen cheerfully, what functions have you added to the exoskeleton armor? Tell me about it. As he spoke, he took a sip of the back drinking water next to him. Compared with the first generation of exoskeleton armor, the second generation of exoskeleton armor mainly enhances the combat capability of individual soldiers. ZHU Ziwen's first sentence made LV Yongchang stunned. First of all, the second generation of exoskeleton armor adopts a fully enclosed structure, and we chose carbon in as the shell material. The output of star gold carbon in composite materials is not enough. ZHU Ziwen explained softly. The armor shell adopts a new structure, which can minimize the impact from the outside world. Energy. We originally wanted to use a macro antimatter engine, but its size is still too large, which will greatly affect the flexibility of the exoskeleton armor. ZHU Ziwen raised his hand shyly and scratched the back of his head, revealing an embarrassed smile. There is no way. We can only use the latest macrofusion reactor as the energy core first. LV Yongchang. Antimatter engine. Is this how it is used? Is it wrong to install the latest macrofusion reactor on the mechanical exoskeleton armor? Cough. LV Yongchang coughed lightly and whispered, Ziwen, do you think this is a bit too wasteful for the mechanical exoskeleton? Waste. ZHU Ziwen frowned slightly and shook his head repeatedly. We have calculated that the power is just right and there is no waste. LV Yongchang. Suddenly, an incredible idea came to his mind. Wait, tell me first, how do you strengthen the combat capability of individual soldiers? Hearing what LV Yongchang said, ZHU Ziwen's spirit suddenly lifted. Professor, this aspect is the highlight. User feedback data shows that the firepower of the military version of exoskeleton armor is too weak. We specially installed a Type 3 laser cannon and a small plasma cannon on it. At the same time, each second generation exoskeleton armor is equipped with 3 macro drones and 3 macro individual hydrogen bombs. The drone has few functions, mainly used for reconnaissance and the delivery of macro individual hydrogen bombs. LV Yongchang looked at ZHU Ziwen in front of him with a numb face. User feedback data. Who gave feedback on this thing? And there are individual hydrogen bombs. What on earth are these people thinking? Is this still called exoskeleton armor? It's almost a mecha, right? LV Yongchang was complaining crazily in his heart. ZHU Ziwen's mouth opened a little, and he smiled nervously. Professor, I know that the lethality of these weapons is not very good. In order to increase its instantaneous explosive power, we specially equipped it with 100 rounds of antimatter Gauss rifle bullets. LV Yongchang's mouth twitched twice. This ZHU Ziwen, I haven't seen him for a few years. How come he has become so crooked? Antimatter rifle bullets are even installed. It is no exaggeration to say that if this were put in the Earth era, it is estimated that an exoskeleton armor would be able to take over the Earth's civilization. Ziwen, tell me, who gave you these improvement plans? LV Yongchang asked in a good voice, trying to suppress his twitching eyebrows. ZHU Ziwen was stunned, and a shy smile appeared on his face again. You found it before the improvement plan? I asked Senior Yevgeny for his opinion. LV Yongchang, it makes sense. Everything makes sense. Seeing the indescribable expression on LV Yongchang's face, ZHU Ziwen asked with some doubt, Professor, are these changes not good compared With the first generation of exoskeleton armor, the attack power of the second generation of exoskeleton armor has been greatly improved, which is suitable for use in this dangerous landing operation. LV. Yongchang sighed softly, swallowed the objection in his mouth, and squeezed out a few words from his teeth. Okay, the change is very good. He took a deep breath and asked again, what about defense? In addition to the armor's own carbon and armor, are there any other defense functions? With LV Yongchang's approval, ZHU Ziwen's smile became more intense. Of course, in addition to the conventional magnetic field shield, we also referred to the shield function of the starship, and added a plasma shield function for emergency avoidance. LV. Yongchang looked at ZHU Ziwen, who was a little shy in front of him, and nodded with an extremely complicated expression. Okay, very good changes. Then, tell me, why do you, a scientist, want to apply for a place on the lost planet? The shy smile on ZHU Ziwen's face gradually disappeared. He looked at Lu Yongchang very seriously and said, seriously, Professor, this is the first time that the second generation exoskeleton armor has fought against alien creatures. In order to obtain real and effective combat data, I apply to follow the planetary exploration team to land on the lost planet. Nonsense. Lu Yongchang looked a little ugly and shouted, you are fooling around. Do you know how much resources it takes for the human union to train an academician? If you die on the lost star, do you know how much of a loss it would be for the human union? ZHU Ziwen's eyes dimmed a little, and he subconsciously avoided LV Yongchang's eyes, but the next moment, he took a deep breath, and his evasive eyes suddenly became firm. He looked directly at LV Yongchang's somewhat angry eyes and said loudly, Professor, you said that practice is the fundamental guarantee of scientific research. When I was developing the second generation exoskeleton armor, I found that the feedback information was extremely inaccurate, which brought great difficulties to the research and development work. In order to confirm the functional perfection of the second generation exoskeleton armor, and to prepare for the research and development of the third generation exoskeleton armor, I must participate in this landing plan. Remote observation on the starship cannot obtain the necessary information for the research and development work, as he said. ZHU Ziwen's voice was slightly weaker. This is also what Senior Yevgeny told me. LV. Yongchang took a deep breath again. Yevgeny, this old guy is really good. He silently made a note in his heart. Go back. Don't bother me here. LV. Yongchang waved his hand impatiently. By the way, remember to send the drawings to me. I will help you check it. Also, go measure the size and report it to 0. Professor. ZHU Ziwen's tone was weaker again. You mean, LV? Yongchang glared at ZHU Ziwen fiercely, and said unhappily, what? Don't you want to go to the lost star? ZHU Ziwen was stunned, and the corners of his mouth opened again. Okay, Professor, you are busy. I won't bother you anymore. Chapter 598. Explorer's Eyesal. The drawings of the second generation exoskeleton armor soon appeared in the holographic projection above LV Yongchang's desk. Looking at the powerful full coverage humanoid armor drawings, LV Yongchang smiled faintly. In fact, in his opinion, the practicality of this second generation exoskeleton armor is not very high, and it can only play a role in specific occasions after all. No matter how powerful the exoskeleton armor is, can it withstand the ship guns on the starship? Planetary landing battles are extremely rare after all. If it weren't for those precious tree resources, LV Yongchang could have ordered to plow the surface of this planet with antimatter bombs. He didn't believe that the life forms living on the planet could use their bodies to resist the damage of antimatter bombs. What giant creatures, carnivorous forests, under the coverage of large field artillery fire. They are all floating clouds, but if you want to use those trees to study the more powerful starship radiation protection layer, planetary landing battles have become an indispensable part. It must be said that ZHU Ziwen's transformation has come in handy just right. Ding. Planetary Explorer, Zyazal, welcome to the year 2921 of the Earth calendar. Currently, the human fleet is at the edge of a black hole. The slightly stiff electronic synthesized sound echoed in his ears. Zyazal slowly opened his eyes. Before the choking feeling came, he coughed hard to clear the deep sea fluid remaining in his trachea. 29:21 The confusion in Zhao Zhao's eyes gradually dissipated. He exerted a little effort and got out of the deep sea cabin. This hibernation time is really long. As he spoke, he turned his head and looked at his side point. The neatly arranged hibernation cabins were quietly fixed on the starship, looking like rows of exquisitely crafted coffins in the distance. Several hibernation cabins lit up with warm orange-yellow lights. He squinted slightly, trying to see the words in the holographic image above the hibernation cabin. Zhang Wen Heo He Balan. He whispered the familiar names in the holographic projection. Only the planetary explorers were awakened. Zhao Zhao murmured in a low voice with some doubt. Strange, isn't the fleet in the black hole area now? Did the fleet find something near the black hole? Explorer Zhao Zhao, please report to conference room number 6 in 2 hours. 0. Did not answer Zhao Zhao's muttering. Zhao Zhao frowned slightly and turned his head to look at the porthole not far away. Just one glance, he suddenly widened his eyes. Is this the black hole? It's really spectacular. Suddenly, his face changed slightly and he shuddered violently. The gaze on the black hole also changed from admiration to a faint fear. No, no, no. Zhao Zhao shook his head vigorously and threw away the unreliable thoughts in his mind. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. The Academy of Sciences would not issue such an order. Right. But this kind of thing, the more you don't think about it, the easier it is to emerge in your mind. Zhao Zhao. A shout came from behind Point. Although it was an extremely familiar voice, it still made him tremble violently. I say, what are you thinking about? A big face with a bright smile appeared in front of him. Point. As if he noticed the fear on Zhao Zhao's face that had not yet dissipated, the smile on his big face faded a little, replaced by a bit of confusion. Hey, Zhao Zhao, what are you thinking about? Speak. Are you sleeping, stupid? Hey, 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 there was a little more worry on his big face, and at the same time, a slightly rough palm kept shaking in front of his eyes. Zhao Zhao lightly tutted and impatiently slapped away the palm that kept shaking in front of his eyes. I say, Su Daisy, do you have so much energy just after waking up from hibernation? Su Daisy, real name Su Pengfei. Point. Because he often does some stupid things, he is nicknamed Su Daisy by Zhao Zhao and others. Hey, hey, hey. Su Pengfei's big face showed a pair of big buck teeth. That's right, you don't even look at who I am. You don't think I'm praising you, do you? Zhao Zhao said weakly. Isn't it? Su Pengfei was stunned for a moment and asked back in confusion. Zhao Zhao. Ah, right, right. So, brother Zhao, what were you thinking about just now? Su Pengfei asked again with a smile. Thinking about life. Although he was full of worries, Zhao Zhao still patiently explained. Why did the Academy of Sciences call us up? Is there any need to ask? Of course it's to explore planets. Su Pengfei looked at Zhao Zhao with a look like a fool. Zhao Zhao, he could accept being despised by anyone, but he absolutely could not accept being despised by Su Pengfei. You idiot. Zhao Zhao raised his hand and gave Su Pengfei in front of him a big slap. Look outside the porthole. The fleet is now next to the black hole. Do you know what a black hole is? What kind of planet are you exploring? Su Pengfei turned his head blankly and looked in the direction of Zhao Zhao's finger. Fuck. It's really spectacular. Zhao Zhao's face froze. Did I make you sigh this? So, brother Zhao, what do you want to say? Su Pengfei straightened his face and asked back with some confusion. Zhao Zhao was silent for a while, then lowered his voice and said, do you think we will be sent to explore the black hole? This is a deadly business. So, what? Su Pengfei showed his usual honest smile. If this is the order of the Academy of Sciences, if the People's Federation needs us to do this, if this can bring human civilization to a higher level, then we just have to execute it. I have been prepared for this from the day I became a planetary explorer. Zhao Zhao fell into silence. After a long time, he sighed deeply. Su Zizi, you are really a fool. Zhao Zhao raised his hand and patted Su Pengfei's thick shoulder. Let's go and get ready. It's time for us to report to conference room 6. With that said, Zhao Zhao turned around and prepared to leave the hibernation area. Brother Zhao, Su Pengfei's voice sounded again. I Asked Zero when I woke up just now. After we hibernated, a battle occurred near Proxima Centauri that spanned dozens of light years. The war destroyed countless star systems, including Gliese 555. Zhao's face changed slightly, and his pace suddenly slowed down. The tail docking plan launched by the Academy of Sciences last time has worked. Human civilization, because of their sacrifices, has successfully found a way to survive. Why are you telling me this? Zhao lowered his head and whispered, brother Zhao, we all know that your father was selected for the tail docking project. Perhaps you are dissatisfied with this plan of the Academy of Sciences, so Pengfei walked slowly to Zhao, the smile on his face not fading at all. But I just want to tell you that he is a hero of human civilization. And he was silent for a while and said again, the tail docking plan is a plan launched by the Academy of Sciences out of desperation. I am confident that when given a choice, the Academy and Parliament will never make such a decision again. Zhao clenched his fists hard, but then released them instantly. He exhaled a long breath and murmured in confusion, "Eyeing a hero, maybe." Zhao shook his head gently and walked forward a little lonely. Zhao. So Pengfei watched Zhao's back gradually go away and disappear around the corner in front, but he hesitated to speak. Chapter 599 Landing Meeting. Everyone, this is the target planet of this landing exploration plan, the lost star located on the periphery of the black hole's accretion disk, ZHU. Ziwen's voice echoed in conference room number 6. As the holographic projection of the forgotten star slowly appeared in front of everyone, a gasp sounded in the conference room. Zhao looked shocked, took a breath, lowered his voice, and said to Su Pengfei beside him, "Damn, there are planets in such a ghost place," and he looked at the basic data of the forgotten star that kept appearing on the side of the projection and swallowed hard. This forgotten star is an authentic livable planet. Good boy, what a great place. As he spoke, a touch of excitement emerged from his eyes. Since becoming a planetary explorer, he has never landed on such a vibrant alien planet. Brother Zhao, how are you? Am I right? So Pengfei obviously didn't listen to what Zhao said. He said proudly. Zhao was stunned by Su Pengfei's sudden request for credit. What did you say? Su Pengfei looked at Zhao with disdain. How did I say that? Given the choice, the Academy of Sciences will definitely not make a decision that would make people die in vain. Zhao, are you okay? Due to the occasion, he glared at Su Pengfei fiercely and cursed in a low voice. Shut up, you idiot. Su Pengfei, ahem, ZHU. Ziwen seemed to be aware of the whispers between the two and coughed softly to remind, the next information is more important. Please focus on the exploration. Zhao nodded stiffly. Got clicked. It's all this idiot Su Pengfei's fault. Thinking of this, he once again glared at Su Pengfei beside him. The reward was naturally Su Pengfei's heartless pair of big teeth. In this landing operation, everyone needs to wear the newly developed second generation exoskeleton armor. These are the basic information for the second generation exoskeleton armor. You can take a look and ask any questions. As ZHU Ziwen spoke, he lightly clicked twice on the holographic interface in front of him. The next moment, a small holographic projection appeared in front of all the explorers. What the hell? After just one glance, Zhao exclaimed in shock. This is not an exoskeleton armor. This is just a small battleship. The next second, his face changed slightly, and he murmured in a low voice, it seems that this planetary exploration operation is not simple. Seeing that no one raised any questions, ZHU Ziwen continued to introduce, according to the information currently obtained, there may be many kinds of creatures on the Forsaken Star. A combination of factors contributed to the relatively large size of these creatures. 1. The giant tree was left behind. The height is generally around 100 meters, but one of the giant trees reaches a height of 12,037 meters. The reason for this phenomenon is still unknown. Hearing this, all the explorers had a look of surprise on their faces. Giant trees can absorb high-intensity radiation and use it as their own energy. Therefore, try not to use offensive weapons with high radiation. Academician ZHU. A wasteland explorer raised his hand and interrupted ZHU Ziwen's words. I don't understand why there are restrictions on the types of weapons. Because of these giant trees. They're just trees. ZHU. Ziwen took a deep breath, and the expression on his face suddenly became serious. Good question. This is what I want to say next. Based on the latest detection data, these giant trees are likely to have the ability to trap prey, like pitcher plants and Venus flytraps. There was a dead silence in the conference room, and all the wasteland explorers looked at ZHU Ziwen in front of them in stunned silence. So, Zhao Zhao said in a daze, once we land on this planet, our opponent may be the entire forest. ZHU Ziwen nodded very solemnly. That's right. However, you can rest assured that there will be shipborne drones following and protecting the entire landing process. Pet. With the newly developed second generation exoskeleton armor, safety is still guaranteed. Academician. ZHU. Besides these giant carnivorous trees, are there any other dangers? Zhao Zhao asked. Of course. As he spoke, ZHU Ziwen clicked on the holographic projection beside him, and a huge biological model appeared in front of everyone. The forgotten giant insect. ZHU Ziwen shrugged. This is the only kind of creature that has been found so far, so I called it that. Don't look at me. This is the name given by Professor Lu. As soon as these words came out, there was a burst of knowing laughter in the conference room. Obviously, everyone here is basically aware of Professor Lu's naming ability. Let's get down to business. ZHU Ziwen brought the topic back. The giant insect is 5 meters long. It has a stronger invisibility ability than a chameleon, and it is likely to feed on highly radioactive materials. The specific appearance is unknown, and may be somewhat different from the model. Unknown aggression, unknown intelligence. As for the purpose of this operation, conduct a comprehensive exploration of the Forgotten Star and obtain detailed information on various creatures, including the 12,037 meter tall giant tree. Then, let's start assigning team tasks. The meeting is over. Zhao Zhao, your team will wait a moment. Just as Zhao Zhao was about to pull his teammates out of the meeting room, ZHU Ziwen's voice came from not far away. Academician ZHU, your team has another separate mission. ZHU Ziwen said with a smile. Protect my safety and provide the experience and data of the second generation exoskeleton armor. Zhao Zhao's eyes widened slightly, and he exclaimed in surprise. ZHU, Academician ZHU, you mean you are also going to participate in this landing operation? Zhao Zhao's exclamation immediately attracted the attention of the explorers who had not yet left the meeting room. P.S. It's cracked. I've been coughing for a month, and I went to the hospital for a checkup this morning. It's acute bronchitis. Chapter 600 The Second Lost Star Landing Operation. Of course, ZHU Ziwen waved his hand and closed the holographic image in the conference room. But, you are an academician. What if? Zhao Zhao suddenly became anxious. You also said that the creatures on this lost star are very threatening. You are not looking for death. ZHU Ziwen laughed and patted Zhao Zhao on the shoulder. Do you know who developed the second generation exoskeleton armor? Zhao Zhao's eyes moved slightly, as if he realized something, but he didn't say anything. I led the team to develop it. ZHU Ziwen said proudly. Do you know how much user feedback data I collected for it? Zhao's mouth twitched slightly. You call this user feedback data? These feedback data. Although the quantity is large, there are not many useful ones. Speaking of this, ZHU Ziwen shook his head with some regret. Plus, I haven't seen a real battlefield, so there will always be some flaws in the design. In order to perfect the design drawings of the next generation of exoskeleton armor, I need accurate battlefield data. Looking at ZHU Ziwen's unusually energetic eyes, Zhao Zhao sighed with a headache. Academician ZHU, has Professor Lu agreed to this? Hearing this, the smile on ZHU Ziwen's face gradually became stronger. Of course I agreed. Zhao. He looked at ZHU Ziwen, who was a little excited, with a numb face. Are there really normal people here? He took a deep breath and said with an extremely serious look. Academician ZHU, landing on an alien planet is not as easy as you think. If you insist on participating in the landing plan, I hope you can obey our arrangements at that time. Otherwise, I may not be able to guarantee your safety. The excited smile on ZHU Ziwen's face gradually disappeared. He stared into Zaya Zhao's eyes and nodded seriously. Captain Zaya, don't worry. 1 week later, as the engineering ship unfolded, the second generation exoskeleton armor soon came out of the blueprint. The planetary explorers who had been undergoing recovery training in the gravity cabin for a week also received a notice from 0. The second landing operation on the Lost Star is about to begin. The port hatch of the Earth slowly opened. One after another, Zhuan's second ships loaded with supplies came out of it. At the same time, the hatch of the shipborne drone on the other side of the Earth also opened. The densely packed shipborne drones whizzed past the Earth like locusts and flew to the Lost Star first. According to the landing plan, these shipborne drones will clear a wide enough landing platform for Zhuan second in the target area. In one of the Zhuan second ships, ZHU Ziwen was tightly wrapped in a 2-meter high second generation mechanical exoskeleton. Rather than saying it is a mechanical exoskeleton, it is better to say that it has already had some prototypes of individual mechas, and this is exactly ZHU Ziwen's research direction on the third generation mechanical exoskeleton. ZHU Ziwen turned his head curiously, and the head of the mechanical exoskeleton also turned. The picture sent back by the camera was displayed in real time in the miniature holographic projection in front of him. The data assistance provided by Zero was also presented in the picture just right. The consciousness moved slightly, and the palm of the mechanical exoskeleton also made a fist. Looking at the shiny shell, ZHU Ziwen felt a sense of power. Suddenly, Zaya Zhao's video communication screen appeared on the side of ZHU Ziwen. Perhaps because it involved his own work, Zaya Zhao's face was extremely serious. Looking at Zaya Zhao's expression, ZHU Ziwen subconsciously loosened his clenched fist. Well behaved. JPG Academician. ZHU, I remind you again, once you land on the Lost Star, you must unconditionally obey our arrangements. Otherwise, I have the permission to remotely control and shut down your exoskeleton armor. ZHU Ziwen's face fell, and he nodded helplessly and said, okay, you are the captain, you have the final say. Zaya. Zhao chuckled, and his tone slowed down a little. Academician. ZHU, this is an order issued by Professor Liu himself. For your safety, you will be wronged. Hearing that it was Liu Yongchang who issued the order, the remaining awkwardness on ZHU Ziwen's face instantly dissipated. He smiled prettily and nodded. Don't worry, Captain Zha, I won't cause any trouble for you. As soon as the voice fell, a slight recoil came, pressing his body against the lining of the exoskeleton armor. Zhuan number 2 set off. The voyage was not long. It only took a few hours for ZHU Ziwen to see the extremely lucky planet from the porthole on the side. He stared at the planet silently, and after a long silence, he sighed silently. Bang, bang, bang. The slight sound of the exoskeleton armor shells colliding with each other attracted his attention. He raised his head and looked in the direction of the sound. I saw that the exoskeleton armor next to him was raising his hand and greeting him. The next second, a big face full of smiles appeared in the miniature holographic projection in front of him. Brother, what's wrong with you? It seems that you are not very happy. ZHU Ziwen, who is this person? Bang. A crisp sound came from beside him. The next moment, Zaya Zhao's scolding sounded. Sudazi, I said you are a idiot, and you are really a idiot. Go away. Don't join in the fun. After saying that, Zaya Zhao smiled at ZHU Ziwen embarrassedly. Academician. ZHU, I'm sorry, I didn't manage the team members well. ZHU Ziwen glanced at Su Pengfei, who was full of grievances, and understood a little. He smiled and waved his hand. Huh, what's the matter? Don't call me Academician ZHU, just call me by my name. Hearing this, Su Pengfei's eyes lit up. Hey, buddy, I know you are easy to get along with, and like Su Pengfei, Zaya Zhao only felt a blackness in front of his eyes. What a sin. ZHU Ziwen didn't care much, and chatted with Su Pengfei happily. Didn't you just ask me why I'm unhappy? Have you seen this planet? What a good habitable planet, but unfortunately, it's going to die soon. Zaya Zhao was stunned, unable to suppress his curiosity, and asked softly, "Why do you say that? It is lucky, but also unfortunate." Zhuziwen looked at the lost star through the porthole, and explained in a low voice, "Its main star was captured by a black hole, but it was lucky enough to survive outside the black hole's accretion disk, and not be swallowed by the black hole, and it can use the light and heat generated by the accretion disk to maintain life on the surface. Unfortunately, over time, the accretion disk will gradually disappear. By then, this planet will become a dead star without an energy source." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.